Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. But the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the ones that are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones who do. Welcome to episode 53 of the Stevie Richards Show. Welcome back to the home studio and welcome to the 1 year anniversary. That was two fingers. 1 year anniversary of the Stevie Richards Show. Also, part 2 of Stevie Night Heat. All Stevie, all night, nothing but heat. And I got my own catchphrase wrong in a previous take. And who knows? James will probably put it up. Chris will probably put it up as a blooper. But speaking of James, very thankful. Happy anniversary to you, James Romero.
Happy anniversary to you, Stevie, man. That year flew by. It really did. Because I've got the folder with all these episodes and all the thumbnails and clips and everything that all goes into them. And just the numbers I know it sounds obvious to say, but those numbers just kept going up really quickly. You know, I can't believe we got to 10, and then we just got to 30, now 50, now we're a year through. We've never missed a week so far, and we've been getting, both you and I, a lot of messages as of recent. Really nice messages from people saying that the show's helping them in some way or distracting them in some way, and we're doing a bit of a positive thing. So I think we were discussing this off air. There's just it's very, very humbling, and we thank you very much, everybody, for sharing those stories with us and letting us know that this isn't completely frivolous. I mean, it is, but it has a bit of good to it as well at times.
Well, what I would do, 2 words stick out to me over the past year and continue with each and every episode and each and every message, email, comment, whatever it might be, that what we tend to do. And I think I get overly excited, but I guess because I'm so raspy and I usually speak very low, people say it's a calming effect. Our talk, and we got an email, or you sent me a comment, I think more specifically, where somebody said, it's like seeing 2 old friends just talk about wrestling and talk about what they say is their favorite subject, pro wrestling, near and dear to their heart. But getting back to the 2 words I think that stick out each and every episode more and more. Number 1 is gratitude. People can choose to watch, listen, support, do whatever. There's millions of wrestling shows and podcasts out there, millions of people making content related to pro wrestling. And the fact that you choose to subscribe, come by, check the content out, interact with it, makes us so grateful. The other word I would say would be just motivation. Your support, you viewing this, the more the numbers go up, the more people that this show affects in a positive way, it motivates us to have higher quality, better format. We're still learning as we do this. So we're tightening up the format, and the mistakes we make, we kind of laugh at and we try to correct. And also, speaking of corrections, we also talk about what we get wrong as quickly as we can to have some sort of correction to those as well. And I think we just try to stand down. And I think the basis on it, James, was we looked at the landscape and what was going on and said, first, how can we improve on what is good out there? And second, let's do the opposite of what we disagree with the way it should be as far as a wrestling product should be.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff we disagreed with. Not between us. We were pretty much, simpatico with that. But no, it's more difficult for us than other people in the sense that we are remote, yet we try and have the highest quality thing we possibly can do, which means that for this show, it's a lot more. There's a lot more that can go wrong, and the editing and shunting it all together takes a lot more time as well. And there's a huge turnover, especially with us two and Chris, who does all the editing as well. So I hope that sort of shines through. And quite frankly, and I know I say this all the time, and I'm sure people go, "Oh God, he's bigging us up again," or whatever. But man, we put in more effort than anybody else when it comes to this style of format of podcasting. I'm discounting people like Maven, who do it in person, or Chris Van Vliet, who they've got the whole setup and it's really good quality. But yeah, with this like remote setup that we've got across the ocean, you wouldn't even know. You'd think we were in the next room to each other pretty much, because even like the timing of the audio back and forth. I mean, I know Stevie's internet's better than mine, which crushes me. Do you know what? Right, people don't realise how many text messages I get from Stevie saying that his upload speed's better than mine. It was daily at one point.
Yeah, I had to let up. I thought you were going to get... Well, if you got so mad to fly over, we could do a show in person after you beat me up. But you speak of Chris. I think he's the MVP of getting this together, turning it around, and making it look like we could almost be in the same exact place, the same exact environment, going back and forth as if we were talking to each other like that. And it'd be very easy for us to just use StreamYard and have these two, what we're looking at right now, just two boxes up there the entire time. Yeah. I know, but it takes an immense amount of effort, but it's the most amount of fun I've had in a long time, because I enjoy the process. I enjoy the production meetings. I enjoy the creative week that we have before we actually hit record on each episode. We really do. It's an awesome team. And now that we're trying to expand the team, we hope we can get people with the same amount of passion, who want to learn, who want to teach us, and just have that symbiotic relationship to help all the brands underneath WSI and with the Stevie Richards show just grow to new levels.
Yeah, we are expanding a little bit. This is going to be more with It's not really to do with the Stevie show. It's sort of independent of that as
because
far as expanding.
I won't let go.
No, you don't need to let go. And you don't need to sing that damn Frozen song either, because I've started hearing that a lot recently. And so essentially, if you are living for anybody in the UK, more specifically in the Stockport area, which is where I am from and where I live, Greater Manchester, East Cheshire area, we have an opening for a very, very skilled and slightly probably underpaid video editor that we want to bring on, because it's mostly remote work, but occasionally we'll need to have, everybody in the same room as well for production meetings or stuff that you just can't do online. So therefore you need to be sort of local to me. If you're interested in that, there is a job opportunity on indeed.co.uk. The link is on my Twitter account, which is WSI_YouTube. You can find it there. I think it's the last post I've done, or if it's not the last post I've done, you'll find it very easily from there. But if you sort of like match all that criteria and you're interested, then go there as well. Should we do the intro very quickly, or do we have one more thing before we do the intro? You told me beforehand we did the Johnny the Bullstan Bowley video last week as to what went wrong. He does the leg drop and then he tore his urethra. And you'd never heard of that injury before. Neither had I since then. Apparently, since then, several people have said that I've had that.
Yeah. I mean, that was the thing that took me back throughout this whole week, or after that clip, I should say more specifically. We really did get more messages, but after the full episode where people caught that in the what went wrong section of that, yeah, I mean, they were talking about it and they were saying that, like, I was just like, I guess I was just taken back with the spot in itself. And how did you think you weren't going to get hurt? Much less what I believed and you believed, one of the rarest injuries that I guess wasn't that rare. We're talking about one guy emailed me who was pole vaulting and ended up. Yeah, exactly. The one you would, as a matter of fact, I think I've seen a few clips on like sports fails and stuff that probably did result in that injury. And I'm assuming if it were me and you, that injury would go unreported. So there's probably more people out there that have that. And yeah, we're going to talk about X-Pac and that injury. And I mean, quite frankly, with that being said, he's missed plenty of those Bronco.
Hang on, you just slipped that. You just slipped that in there. You just, and we're going to talk about. No, we were talking about Johnny the Bull, but yeah, what went wrong this week is a sort of just a couple of inches south near. We're going to be talking about the X-Pac injury Bronco Buster thing, where as horrific as it is as an injury, nobody can say it without laughing.
Well, I can, because I've had the weirdest injuries, and I like X-Pac, and it's easy to laugh at those things. It really
even
is.
He laughed at it. That's the thing.
know.
Even he's
well, you have to. I laughed at. I almost died from a spine infection. Wrestlers are crazy. Think about it. They were just nuts. So it doesn't. But with me, I just look at that and I try to be like, this is just an injury, because that could have been career threatening. Like, I don't know to what degree, what his quality of life or anything like that. I haven't researched how long it even takes to heal from those types of injuries for both guys. The urethra, and then the one
Franklin.
What time?
Urethra Franklin.
Yeah, Vince's favorite American
Queen of Soul.
Yeah, Vince's favorite WrestleMania 3 opening with the, there we go. Voluntary.
Yeah, also, right, let's do the intro, but we need to get to the Patreon quickly. So, fitness, Stevie Richards Fitness on YouTube, link in the description. Stevie Richards is also on Cameo as well, and the reason he is one of the most beloved Cameo members. Dutch is trying to go on Cameo as well now, so you're going to have to teach him how to do it properly. Stevie's on Cameo and does so well on Cameos because he gives your money's worth and more, going above and beyond. That is why he's one of the most top-rated and top interacted with and top purchase cameos on the platform. And, of course, we've got to talk about the Patreon. For goodness sake, we gave a lot of content on Patreon this week. The watch-along was Randy Orton versus Cody Rhodes from Night of Champions this past week in Saudi Arabia. But also, we usually plug that more. But also this time, it was the pre-show that probably went about 30, 40 minutes, and it went from everything to our favourite game, driving games of the 90s, to the usual tech stuff that we just bore each other to death with. But the other thing was, right, Stevie had sent me like a remix, like comedy rap of Donald Trump swearing recently. And then I found one of a... what do you call him? Evangelist. Televangelist, and it's called Kenneth Copeland. And I said he was this little Killer Kowalski looking son of a gun. And then he remixed like the Wind of God and COVID-19 and everything, and it was dead funny. And then you'd heard of him, and apparently, and he was on Inside Edition.
Oh yeah, that was probably my favorite clip of all time, and most people know if they've seen that. With him and the woman kind of caught him in an airplane hangar talking about, why do you have a private jet? As he's getting into a huge, looking like a bulletproof Escalade, like he's the president getting into the back of that thing. And he goes, if you want to watch a wrestling promo and go through the gambit of emotions and the range and the spectrum, you get all that within that 6 to 12 minutes if you watch the whole clip. Everything from happy to subdued, to, I don't know, threatening her life in a way, a veiled threat of, and don't you ever say that. We wrestle not with, yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's the suppressed rage of that dude. Like, that wig was spinning. That was doing a 360 on his head.
He already had the body buried out in the airfield and everything. He was trying to figure out a way to cover it up. So yeah, that was that was off the rails, but it was a way to bump test another 2 to 3 weeks off the watch-alongs.
Oh, this was something else as well that we saw on the Patreon. Stevie, I'm not sure he didn't believe me, but I said, you did a pre-tape with him where Tess was wearing a T-shirt that just had the word ass on it, and then a donkey, more an ass, I guess. And he's like, huh? And I said, well, yeah, you did several weeks of vignettes on Heat over. It's actually on the Stevie Richards Stevie Night Heat compilation that person put out that was like 8 hours long as well. So, and then I found, and I know you haven't been through them all because there's just too much, I sent you all of 2002 Heat. So now if you ever want to do like the ultimate compilation, Stevie, now you can.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And we appreciate, once again, grateful for the person that put together 8 hours of the Stevie Night Heat compilation. It's a lot of work, not just the U.S. heats, but the international heats as well. And coming up, you're going to talk about legends I worked with on a future episode, Take a Drink. And part of the Patreon watch-along, just to give you a little spoiler, will be one of my favorite matches that I'm actually sentimental about. When you get in the ring with a guy like Mr. Perfect, and you're allowed to kind of do some Mr. Perfect isms to him, it's kind of a cool little bucket list match. Sergeant Slaughter was another one. There's a ton of people that I ended up working on Heat, even in my early days of Jack the Metal, with Dean Malenko, Gangrel, Big Boss Man, Steve Black. There's a ton of people on Jack Metal, and then when I turned into Sunday Night Heat and then Stevie Night Heat, so many legends and so many people I got to work. The one person I never got to work, and I wish I did because he was on Heat for quite a bit, and Crash got to work him a lot, was British Bulldog. Never got to work him. Never got to work him.
That's a shame. I remember, I don't know if this was his last ever match in the WWF, but he was fired in early 2000 because of various issues he was going through. And then they brought him back for like a week or two in May. And I remember there was a British Bulldog versus Eddie Guerrero match.
Oh, wow.
That was really good. And that was somewhere like in May of 2000. So, speaking of which, I'll be able to find that most likely as well. But I also want to say a thank you to someone called Richard Land. He was actually the person who found the Mr. Perfect match with you.
Yeah, awesome.
And also, I said, listen, I've got a bit of a question for you. I remember somewhere in early 2000, it must have been International Heat because no one's ever found it or seen it. And the Godfather's beckoning the hose across the ring, and one of them doesn't realise it's bouncy. So she steps and goes, and does like a front bump from it. And no one remembers it apart from me. And he found it for me.
Oh, wow.
So I'm really, really appreciative of doing that because I gave him rough information. I thought it was international. I said it's probably January, February. It turned out it was April. So that would have been Backlash, I guess. But yeah, he found that for me, so I want to say thank you to him as well.
I'm going to give you a double Easter egg right here. Double secret promotion Easter egg here. And we can do a watch along on Patreon as well. Raven was looking, when Beulah went with Dreamer, I believe this is the timeline back in ECW. By the way, watch along, Raven versus myself, and then Raven and myself versus the Hardys. That's coming up this Monday on the watch along, Monday morning. So Raven was telling me he had put me out on a quest to use the Dungeons and Dragons or another type of a Final Fantasy type video game thing. I went on a quest to find the most disgusting woman with no morals, no ethics, the lowest of the lows, to bring in to present the Raven, to basically be the new Beulah for him. Well, for some reason, we got Divine Brown. If that name is from the Hugh Grant Divine Brown thing. She got into the ring and she was talking and she was, allegedly completely messed up or whatever and talking. And he said, she's not low enough. She's not a big enough piece of trash or not disgusting enough or whatever it was. And he left and she was trying to, I guess, follow him. She had like these high heels that were like maybe 8 to 12 inches high. And she started to fall, and I just scooped her up like the Macho Man Elizabeth thing. And that was the end of the opening for ECW that week.
Damn.
She was about to take the face plant. She was about to, because she was screaming
let.
oh! She started doing the car lot thing. The things are outside the car lot. And I ended up
you should have let her fall over. She wasn't coming back.
Oh, come on, man.
Oh, you're too chivalrous.
That's a James
You're
Romero.
too chivalrous for this game.
James Romero was like, well, look, I'm retired. Of course I am.
Yeah, and I think I was probably about 8 or 9 when that happened. So if I was hanging about with Divine Brown, my parents would have...
Well, that was you
watching.
Questions. You're a big fan of the Murder Hour anyway, so you would have wanted her to fall, not only onto the mat, but probably to the floor.
Yeah, but the irony is that if I know it's coming, I will be really, really embarrassed and I won't be able to watch it. But if I don't know it's happening, then I'll find it the funniest thing in the world.
Nobody knew that was going to happen. Trust me. That was the audible. That was like in today's world of wrestling, she would have fell down 16 times because the gorilla position didn't tell the referee to tell the wrestler to save her from falling.
Ah, yes, of course. Ah, dear me. The old days of thinking on the fly, eh?
Yeah.
Doesn't really happen that much. Right, we've got so much content for this anniversary show. I don't really think we meant to have this much, but there's just so many, if nothing else, what went wrongs and what went rights that we wanted to include at the end as well. So we may have to bump that Florida Championship Wrestling Talent Evaluations thing until another week. But hey, it's always better to have too much content than... not enough.
I think
we're going to go to
Stevie.
Stevie.
I can interrupt. I'm sorry. I think that could be an episode with a theme of when I got sent down to developmental and what developmental was like, and then when I was going to get hired as a coach for FCW and why I turned that down, and then the week at the Performance Center. That can be a whole theme of that where we do go through the evaluations.
Okay, well, do we need to take a drink?
Take a drink. Future episode. On WWE developmental over the years, sort of history of WWE developmental.
Oh, for goodness sake. I mean, that's just a far better idea than just sort of wedging that in. So, yeah, there we go. We've got what went right, what went wrong. Might get rid of the... Anyway, the what went right is Charles Robinson, so look out for that afterwards.
Yeah, the biggest bully in wrestling. The biggest bully I've ever met in wrestling.
I tell you what, he can still... He wasn't quite the same as the sprint from 2008, but man, he can still shift for a man in his 60s.
Well, if you were saying, hey, Stevie's hurt in the ring and we need somebody to go and kick him while he's down, he would run much faster.
I'm sure he would.
And he's a fan of the show. So congratulations on getting released, Charles. Based on that.
Future endeavors.
If you get a Charles Robinson resume in the next week for the show.
Yeah, I was going to, future guest, Charles Robinson.
Future employee, maybe.
Future. Oh, God, yeah, maybe. Future. What game was he best at? What was his game that he'd do you at?
Oh, I remember when we played Madden, we had the most defensive Madden game of anybody between myself and Rosie, myself and D'Lo, myself and Glenn, or we would mix up the game. We were 3-0 into the fourth quarter, and he picked the Browns. I had the Eagles. It was... You would have changed the channel probably by the second quarter if you were watching this game. There was definitely even for soccer or European football, it's a low scoring game.
I was going to say 3-0 would be quite a high scoring game, really,
for
our football anyway. Yeah, I mean, there is virtue in that Simpsons thing, from years ago where they go aligaga too, and then they have and they're all signing autographs, and everyone in Springfield goes to see football, and they say, this match will finally determine who the greatest nation of all time is, Portugal or Mexico, and then everyone's just bored to tears by it, and then they start a riot. So that is why there are football riots. Anyway, Stevie Night Heat, for goodness sake, we've kept the people waiting long enough, and this is part 2. And we're going to be talking about, obviously, the people you wrestled, commentators at first, why it ended, the Stephanie McMahon story, and all that good stuff as well. So, commentators first. I'll probably leave the most obvious two until last, because I know you've got stories on both. But there were a lot of commentators revolving around Heat, almost seemed like one giant audition for wrestlers who could transition into that role in the future. And basically, none of them did, really, full-time. Some of the old ones, Kevin Kelly, Michael Cole, Jacqueline, Ivory, Lita, they all did commentary during the Stevie Night Heat series. D'Lo Brown for quite a few weeks towards the beginning as well. Before we get to the main two, obviously, D'Lo Brown's a commentator. The first time I heard him doing commentary was actually 98 as a guest commentator, and he was pretty good at it.
Yeah, that might have been the foundation and the callback to that, because they said, well, who can we plug in there? And D'Lo is definitely underrated as being a utility guy. Obviously, he transitioned into the office, especially with TNA and Impact. I'm not sure if he's still there to today, but he's definitely somebody that's been behind the scenes for quite a long time. And D'Lo really, this is the thing with commentary, and it could be a love-hate thing or a patience or impatience thing. You got to give people weeks, if not months, to get their voice, find their voice, and then for the audience to identify with the voice with that, because people have kind of criticized me, like, you can never be a commentator. Your voice is way too raspy, way too what. But you could say the same thing about D'Lo. You could say definitely the same thing about Al. He has a raspy voice as well.
Yeah, Brian Pillman. He was a really good commentator in 97.
Oh, he's the raspiest of the raspy. He's our raspy god. We bowed to the raspy god. But yeah, D'Lo was really, really good. And having a worker do it who has experience is the NFL model, is usually all the sports models of having that experience where the play-by-play guy, a coach, a Joey Styles, a JR, even a Vince McMahon, will throw the softballs to where you give sound bites. Now, the sound bites, we don't do that here a whole lot because obviously long-form content, that's something I would struggle with. And D'Lo got progressively better at laying out, which is just as important as speaking at the right time, is knowing when to shut up, when to stay quiet and like coach. And there are people in the ear at Heat, not as much as Raw, but there are people feeding lines sometimes to the commentators. So this year, you're actually listening to the show and the other commentator. Then the other ear, you're listening to Gorilla at the same time. Incredibly difficult. And D'Lo did it. I think it was more than a few weeks. I could have swore almost during the Wacko Stevie part of Sunday Night Heat, it was Raven and D'Lo, and that's a name you left off as well. Raven commentated on Heat, and that's how we had our match that one time.
Right, I just thought he was doing guest commentary. I didn't realize
he did
he was
commentary
actually
for a few weeks as well.
There we go. I know he did commentary as Johnny Polo at one point. There was a period where Jerry Lawler on Raw, like late 93, early 94, I think that's the time frame, or maybe it was in 94, 95, I don't know. It must have been 93, 94, because at one point they had Bastion Booger do it, just for a week, and he was obviously terrible, and he ate the entire way through. Johnny Polo did it for a while. A lot of people did it for a while. Jim Cornette did it for a while. He was obviously really good. You know who the best person was as a colour commentator? This will blow your mind. Shawn Michaels. He did a great job as a colour commentator.
Yeah, he did.
Of all people.
He did one of the best calls when Bart Gunn won the Brawl for All. Shawn was on commentary with that.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
He basically said nobody handed it to him. He earned it. Basically saying he wasn't supposed to win.
Yeah, well, Jim Ross had like a minute to compose himself, like dried the tears away when Dr. Death, like, obviously didn't win.
All they had to do was tell everybody it was a work. It was a very weird thing. We might have to do a whole episode on the Brawl for All. That would be...
Love it. Yeah. Love it. I've interviewed half the people who was in it. I made it my mission to interview as many people as possible. Even when we had Bradshaw on the Dutch show, I'd say, Dutch, sit this one out for a minute. Bradshaw, what about the Brawl for All? So, yeah, I've got like a compilation of like 8 different interviews for Brawl for All. One of my favorites. And
it's a good thing to have. Definitely. Yeah. I wonder if they could get away with that today. You figure there's more shooters in wrestling today than ever. It'd be pretty interesting. Especially since TK owns UFC and WWE.
One, it would massively expose everybody, and two, the Brawl for All rules were among the stupidest rules for any sport ever. Didn't make any sense, and no one could agree on them. And then instead of getting Danny Hodge, because he refereed like the first batch of matches for the first couple of weeks, then they just had Jack Doan do it for the rest of them. Jack Doan didn't know what he was doing.
Probably because Danny Hodge was like, I'm getting in there. Like Danny Hodge started stretching everybody. I met him one time, was in Oklahoma, and he shook my hand, and I knew everything I needed to know about Danny Hodge off a handshake. I was like, oh my God. But it's funny because people like Mark Merrow, and now we're turning to a Brawl for All. We'll stop after this. Somebody like Mark Merrow would have done extremely well as a Golden Gloves boxer if the rules favored, the takedowns. He wrestled Bradshaw, and Bradshaw did a lot of takedowns. I should say he fought Bradshaw, but it was a straight up striking thing. It would have been very interesting to see Bart Gunn versus Mark Merrow in the finals.
Well, I asked Mark, and it was just like, I probably even just said it overtly. It's like, I thought you were a Golden Gloves boxer. Why couldn't you outbox people? And he was like, I'd had 5 knee surgeries. I couldn't move.
Well, I would do it. That would do it.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, in my own knee surgery history, I can tell you exactly that's true. You just don't move how you used to. It sucks, but it's how it is.
Hey, but still, these are not. You get caught by Mark Merrow, who is a Golden Gloves boxer. You're going down. But the rules favored too much of a mix for a boxer to kind of. It was more like MMA, if you think about it.
Yeah, but MMA has codified rules. No, this was like what constitutes a takedown.
I think they had 3 weeks to think everything over, right? If not less time. It was a quick turnaround. All I do, I love the Brawl for All music. It's awesome.
Love it. Because Butterbean used it. And probably Bart Gunn used it at one point.
Might have to do that for a watch along too.
Right. So, all right. Yeah, we will have to do a Brawl for All watch along just because it would make me very happy. Now, let's get back to the commentators. And the 2 main ones from Heat of the 2003 era, absolutely. Johnathan Coachman and Al Snow. Now, you said beforehand, I think on last week's episode, you said they were in on the joke straight away. They were in on the fun. They wanted to have as much fun with it as humanly possible. And also, they were on the main roster as well. They were doing... they did Raw for a bit because they beat Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler in a tag team match for, control over doing commentary for Raw, I'm sure, for a couple of weeks as well.
Yeah. So that was that's actually when Stevie Night Heat, the beginning of the end, happened. But we'll get to that later on in this episode. No need to take a drink. It's this episode. But looking at this, Johnathan Coachman and Al Snow, called him Al Stone on the show, there would be no Stevie Night Heat without them. They were the facilitators. They were the ones that made sure when the pre-tapes happened, that production put it into the show. They were the ones helping book the angles. They were the ones that had to be. They were commentating. They were in on everything. We ran Stevie Night Heat, how we run the Stevie Richards show. Literally with these meetings, and there would be text, there would be all sorts of communication throughout the week to make sure that Stevie Night Heat had the pre-tapes, had the angles, the commentary, and the match. Now, people have asked before, and you asked, well, how did you know how to do a pre-tape if, say, Tony Garea, hey, what are you, smartass? You know, hey, he wrote on the board, or somebody booked the matches or threw them together. Well, that's what thinking on the fly is. Okay, at 4 p.m. we have this. Hey, coach, can we get, a pre-tape real quick in the locker room here? Can we borrow a cameraman? Al, make sure nobody's watching. We had a lookout. We had everything. It was great.
You had a lookout. Who was the lookout?
Usually one of the other boys making sure, hey, somebody's coming.
With Johnathan Coachman, I know he's doing a bit of podcasting here and there now, and he's, saying, he still knows people in WWE and production and stuff like that. So even back in because he was production, I guess, like the announcers and stuff are more, connected with the production people than the wrestlers are, I guess. So yeah, he was really spearheading this, I guess. And adding to that, who actually first came up with the idea for GM, Stevie?
Me, because it was the GM era. So there was a GM of Raw, there was a GM of SmackDown. There was no GM on the secondary shows. It's naturally, and being a heel and claiming to be a GM when I have no power whatsoever and I own the company, and then people just start playing along, then it creates angles where I think you're an idiot, but you know what? I'm going to beat you on your own show. See, there's a whole bunch of little nuance and detail to it that I'm dealing with a crazy person, but you know what? Let me just go along because he's an idiot. I'm just going to beat him in a match, and he's going to think that, one of his employees beat him, whatever it is, And then people start to see, like, there is some interest in it. And then you look, back then you actually looked at ratings and you're like, wait a minute, the ratings are actually going up on the show. Now everybody's like, oh, now it's cool. I'm part of something. We actually have a storyline and angle, whether it's make pretend or not. The boys and people involved with it want their bumps, want their matches, want their pre-tapes, want something to mean something. Even if you have to kind of fool yourself and mind F yourself into, we're doing something that's noticeable that will hopefully stand up the test of time. And weirdly enough, it did. And if you think about it, this is right up there with the BWO. This strictly started as a parody, just as a joke. And then people just started to get with it. It's so weird.
So Johnathan Coachman is one of the early supporters, I guess, because even before Al Snow is sort of a permanent Heat color commentator, he's one of the people, getting production involved and helping sort of things go through, I guess.
Actually, I'm not sure of the timing of that, because during the Wacko Stevie days, and this isn't the order, I'm not sure, but I think the last person to be a commentator with Coach was Lita before Al took over. Then it was the Stevie Night Heat days. It was D'Lo, Raven, I'm not sure which order. I think Raven was first, then D'Lo, then Lita, and then sometimes you would have like Todd Grisham step in after Coach, and he'd be him and Al. But Al was also the constant. I think actually when Todd took over commentary, Coach and Al told him, now this is Stevie Night Heat. Now this is like gave him orientation to what it was going to do. Or let him know, like, this is what we're doing. Or maybe Todd was like, this is fun. I don't care. I'm going. And he went along with it. Like, I acted like one time when I came out for a match, I would always turn to them on the table for the live shot. Now, they're usually commentating back in Stanford. I think if they can help it, they would do the commentary live. But I would make sure we would get a live shot, and they would need to be at the table. So I would do, like, when Todd did the first show, I looked over and I was like a Vince McMahon, like, who is that? Did I hire that guy? And he's like, you've already got heat with the boss.
Did you do any voiceovers like after the fact in Stamford?
I did not. No, I did not. But there was a few times when I lived in Connecticut, because I lived in Connecticut during that time, that just to make sure I would go down there and I would say, hey, coach, are we going to get the pre-tape through? But I got it covered. Because sometimes my OCD is like, oh, I can't delegate. I got to go down and see if it's really, really going to make it. But also, if I'm at Titan Tower and one of the stooges or office people that aren't clued into it see me down there and there's a pre-tape and they're like, well, wait a minute. When did Stevie do a pre-tape? I wanted to be far enough under the radar to where we didn't arouse any suspicion.
Was Coach like really connected then with WWE?
I think
at
a
the
lot
time?
more connected than anybody realized, because unfortunately for Coach too, like he talks about it, like he would get messed with. There was that rib where they arrested him for gambling the one time, and joked when there was a rib on him.
No, whoa! I don't know this.
He was doing some fantasy football or some fantasy thing where there was bets and money, and Vince played a rib on him where they had him arrested for doing it, and then finally they did whatever. But it was kind of a mean-spirited rib, a mean-spirited prank in a way. So Coach had that Michael Cole type of treatment here and there, which he didn't deserve, but I think that's why people underestimated just how talented and how connected Coach is. And I think now the guys on the Madden halftime show, I think still or for a few years, he was on that. And now he's going to have, I believe, his show on Sirius XM. So there's a lot of growth with him, and also the XFL. But you think about it too, like Coach also famously tweeted that after the XFL went defunct, that WWE actually owed him money. And I don't know if they paid him to this day, but I remember tweeting back at him when I was on social media saying, I've never, ever missed a payment to you from Stevie Night Heat. And he replied, he goes, no, boss, I've always got my paycheck on time. So he still remembers and still goes along with it. Big props to Coach, because Coach is a legitimate sports commentator, a legitimate sports analyst that should be working full-time in any sport he chooses to do so, especially in the NFL.
Now, I know he went back to WWE a few years ago. It just didn't work out for whatever it was. It wasn't the same as the first stint he was with WWF/WWE, pretty much throughout the 2000s. What do you think of him as a commentator? Because commentary in wrestling is a very difficult thing to sort of get fans on your side for, especially when you've still got Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler, if I can say, on the A show. And then they even tried to replace Jim numerous times, throughout the years. And obviously no one's ever going to beat Jim Ross, as much as Michael Cole wants to, as far as, being the greatest commentator of all time. So what do you think in that vein that Coach did as a commentary job? How would you rate him?
I think he did A+. But here's the thing. In the wrestling bubble, the wrestling environment, Coach could be construed as too vanilla, he had the heel one, which was kind of like going back and forth, reminded me of Don West, but Don West wasn't the lead commentator like Mike Tenay. He was a color commentator. He was somebody that could be a heel like a Jesse or other people or a Lawler. Coach shines better outside of wrestling. Coach has the perfect NFL, Fox, CBS, sports commentator type of presentation. In other words, if you hear an Al Michaels, you hear a Pat Summerall from back in the day, present day, I think it's Kevin Burkhardt, and other people that are the main commentators of these, Jim Nance with Tony Romo, Coach has that type of clean commentary voice, which obviously in wrestling, which is Bizarro World, lends him to not be the best commentator. Because I dare you say JR, outside of say an Oklahoma game or a college football game in the South, his voice would not translate in a mainstream NFL product. Just my opinion.
I'm just looking at how many matches Johnathan Coachman had. 55 in WWE. Wow.
More than I
didn't realize he had that many. Including one against Goldberg.
Wow. He lived to tell the tale. Hey, by the way, everybody, thank you so much. Out of everything we've talked about, I think the biggest response outside of people saying they tore their urethra And people sending us AI images of Goldberg fighting soda machines has been the biggest
Yeah.
in the past week or two.
Yeah, and then I started making them as well. Do you know he was doing house shows? Wrestling Eugene, he was wrestling Maven, Shelton Benjamin and Tatanka.
This is not a trained worker, by the way. He's not a small dude, but not being a trained worker. I don't know if they were doing that to test him in some way or maybe make him want to quit. The second run, I remember he spoke about that publicly, maybe even it's up on YouTube, that it was not what it seemed and it was different. And it just, he didn't want to be there any more than they didn't think he was a fit that second run. He just didn't want to be there.
Now, we're going to move on, and we're going to be ranking some Stevie Night Heat opponents. I'm not sure we're going to get through this entire list because I think there's like 40 names on this. So we either do the really brief version of it, or we do half. We'll sort of just go through it, and maybe we can save the other half for another time. Now, how are we gonna do it? Should we just do the A, B, C, D? A, amazing experience with him. D, Heidenreich. And then we can pick a super special S at the end for your absolute favorite opponent of the Stevie Night Heat era.
You know what's funny is that you put everybody on this list and everybody had fun. I think it's just the environment. Even when Bradshaw was on Heat and other people, or I wrestled Rosie when he was the superhero in training, it was an excellent experience. I don't remember ever having a bad experience. The only bad experience I had working a match on Heat was against Tajiri. That was like pulling teeth, and that was not fun at all. But that's the only case where there was no real like creative like symbiosis or anything. Like worked bright. Everybody who came on Heat, especially after Stevie Night Heat started, they kind of were like, oh, I'm here to have fun. I might have a pre-tape. The match is going to be, I have input. I can do stuff. I can be myself. And usually if it's me, you're getting put over in some way. So a lot of people, if you want to take a different approach, maybe each and every person I wrestled, I have a memory of, a specific memory of something that happened. If you want to start with Jeff Hardy, first of all, awesome guy, awesome person to work. But with Jeff, there's the thing on Raw where all the blue paint got on me. People still see that where I got all the paint, the blue paint all over my nose and face and look like a clown. But on Heat, we wrestled a Heat match, and this is where I talked about Michael Hayes. He was the agent for the match, and he kept repeatedly saying, Jeff, you have Heat, and you're getting punished by putting this guy over. He wouldn't even say my name. He just pointed to me, and I'm like, dude, I'm right here. That's what I said after like the fifth time. But Jeff was amazing to work with. In this match, I remember it was December, right before the break, like where they usually do the tape compilation shows at the end of the year. I was scheduled to fly to Las Vegas to go to the Star Trek experience at the Hilton. That was my big thing that I wanted to do outside as a vacation. And in this match, Jeff hits me literally with the whisper in the wind, that twisty thing that always lands different. His heel got me right dead on the nose and crushed my nose, and I needed to go home and get the nose fixed and get the 2 feet of gauze up each nostril. So that was a canceled vacation. So if you're wrestling Jeff Hardy, always step in. Let him overshoot you because that heel's going to catch you. But Jeff, A plus opponent, whether it's on Raw, SmackDown, Heat, House Show, Indies, the Hardys in general want to work with you. We talked about it on the watch along with me and Raven.
Yeah, the Hardys specifically, some people who've always got ideas. Because, I mean, it must be terrible to have an opponent and you say, what do you want to do? And they go, what do you want to do? Then you just stalemate straight away.
Yeah, I mean, there's what you want to do if they don't want to volunteer anything if they have less experience. The Hardys are completely different, and they're different in a lot of ways because it's just based on a lot of stuff that you want to make the match really, really good. And I think that's about what it was with Stevie Night Heat, that everybody on there, after everybody got over the fact, and you have a question later, everybody got over their egos about, oh, I'm demoted to Heat, I don't have to be here. And they realized, hey, the boys are having fun. We're getting paid the same. Who cares? Let's just make the most out of it. And the Hardys never heard a complaint from Jeff nor Matt that I'm on Heat. I'm on the, if you think about it, in the beginning of their career, they were on the Heat a whole lot before they were, even, they were enhancement talents. Then they were on Heat a whole lot. Then they had the, they weren't the Brood. They were New Brood. They were on Heat a whole lot before it was even Stevie Night Heat.
They were with Michael Hayes when they were pretty much on the main roster. Then they did the New Brood for like a minute. Then they got rid of Gangrel, and then they were just the Hardys afterwards. Well, speaking of the Hardys, of course, Matt Hardy as well, because I believe you had a series with Matt on Heat, or at least a short series of single matches, because there were pre-tapes and interviews and the whole bit about it.
Yeah, I think we had a best 3 or something like that, and we didn't know if it was going to turn into 3 or not, but we decided to do some pre-tapes. Once again, I believe that nobody really at the top was like, we need to have a Matt Hardy pre-tape with a Stevie Richards match. I think it was just, we got a space here. Let's see if we can fit it in. Production people are very agreeable and cared about it as well. I think the one thing that I loved was when Matt came out and he was starting to do the Matt Hardy version 1, and they would put the Matt facts up, and they would have Steve, you find Stevie very disturbing and all these. They just added so much to the match. But you want to talk about Matt and myself, we understand, like it was Raven and Richards for a while, for a long time, or Victoria and Stevie after this or whatever. I was always kind of the Marty Jannetty, not to be insulting the Marty because he's an excellent worker. Matt was always considered to be less than Jeff. But Matt had a great mind, still has a great mind for the business. And Matt, dare I say it, would get over more with personality, especially as a heel, as Matt Hardy version 1. And this was the birth of that, where we were both trying to find how can we stand out on our own. And let's work a great match during the process of this, which turned into that series.
Since we're not doing the rankings then, why don't we just pick... I know there's going to be a couple of bad ones as well, but let's just pick a few of the absolute favourite opponents in order. That I will. You've got the list in front of you, so I presume you want to mention Big Show because you would wrestle him in, is it handicap matches several times?
With PJ, it was my first match back, really, after losing all the weight with the right to censor, going to developmental, take a drink, future episode, and then that first match was a live Heat before a pay-per-view, so an immense amount of responsibility to also get Big Show over as a monster. And you're working with a guy you never tug up with before, just incredible, to try to put all that together. And I think we put it together pretty well.
So we've got Just Incredible as a tag partner. We mentioned Raven, of course, on the Patreon, so I'd suggest... Oh, and also on last week's episode as well. You wrestled Bradshaw quite a few times as a singles. I know you had interactions with the APA when you had the UPN logo on your chest and everything, but Bradshaw, in 2002, they were once again trying to make him a singles star. They tried it in 98 briefly. It didn't really work out at that point, but then in 2002, he's part of the hardcore division, but working Bradshaw, which you would do quite a few times.
Yeah, I mean, and on Heat, it was fun. The favorite match with Bradshaw would be where I wrestled Bradshaw and I tried to hand him the belt in a pre-tape and say, just take it. And he wouldn't take it. He goes, I'll see you out there. And I'm like, oh, I'm so dead. And go out there. We do the whole thing. He throws the weapons in. I throw him out the other side. I laugh. He holds on the one, ends up hitting me, blah, blah, blah. But then in the end, I think Bradshaw came up with this finish. He hits, Crash comes in because it's a hardcore title match to try to win the title. Bradshaw gives him the clothesline from hell. He rolls to the floor. I cover him 1, 2, 3 and run off, and Bradshaw chases me. So it was kind of nobody got buried. Everybody got over in their own little way. I would say Bradshaw, for the hardcore title stuff and everything, a lot of fun to work. Big Show wouldn't be one of my favorite opponents, talking about back then, because outside of how we presented it, how much more could you do with them? Unless I was pushed to a point like a Punk was, but when he wrestled Big Show, he was able to go 50-50 with him because of the presentation of Punk at the time. So I would say Big Show would probably be one of the hardest opponents to work. Bradshaw, out of a storyline, is easy. Bradshaw, just for the match, would be a little tough because of the size difference, the style difference with that. So not saying they were bad opponents, but definitely you get a Jeff Hardy, Matt Hardy, Raven, Crash, more with him where we can keep the gears going and I can be more comfortable doing more.
Right, so I'll let you just go through the list of some
right.
of the people you want to talk about as far as the best, and a couple of people that might have been difficult. As you say, because it's more fascinating, or just as fascinating, to hear why, as much as you love Big Show, it's difficult to work with him for this reason as well. So,
Well, just long term, one match, one off is great. But if you're going a storyline, I got nothing going on. We're going to delay the inevitable if I work him on Heat.
Yeah, there's two people we're going to skip as well for future episodes. Sorry, everybody. Mr. Perfect and Sergeant Slaughter, because they're going to be for an upcoming Legends episode that we're going to be doing as well.
Yeah.
So whichever names jump out at you for one reason or another, let me know.
Number one. Number one by a long shot, not saying number two and below are bad. Goldust. Goldust is the one, is the talent, is the arch enemy of the GM of Stevie Night Heat. He was my most insubordinate employee. He played along with it, and I had a ton of matches, maybe not as much as, say, a Maven or a Val Venus, but every match I had with Goldust was a part of a storyline, and we bridged it. Whether the company wanted the storyline to continue or not, Dustin and I did it, and Dustin was a guy that could have very easily felt super demoted by being on Heat. And he embraced it. He made the most out of it. And he made Stevie Night Heat what it was because he was my foil. He was the guy that was always like just picking at me and poking at me. And he was the one that I just got mad about every single week when I had the opportunity. So he was my favorite by far. Goldust.
He was also the same as you. So he was also on Raw pretty much every week doing the movie
with Booker T too.
Parodies and with Booker T, yeah.
Yeah.
So he had tons to do, the same as you when you were Victoria and you were doing Heat at the same time. So yeah, you both were hugely used on both shows.
And I wrestled him pre-Tourette's and during Tourette's. One of the matches is he made a comeback using Tourette's.
Go on.
That's it.
You can't just say, you've got to explain it.
No, basically, yeah, he was doing when I hit him, and then he would just spaz out. I guess that's the way to put it.
We talked about Spike Dudley on Patreon, so I think we'll leave Spike out of this. I know he was one of your favourite opponents for that reason. Are we going to say Umaga and Rosie, ECMO and Chemo at the time, or was that was just a one-off? Was it?
I didn't wrestle Eki. I wrestled Rosie as the superhero in training. I never wrestled him as Scream in the Morning. Or did I? I wrestled Eki. I wrestled Eki on an OVW show. He gave me that Samoan drop that I felt like it killed me. The one where he throws you up and falls back. I was not ready for that.
I've got a feeling I got a feeling you wrestled him in a tag. I was collecting names.
Was it a dark match?
I'm wondering maybe if it was then. Well, let's move on to a different name. I mean, from D'Lo Brown onwards, pick another name that stands out as good, bad, to the extremes.
I guess you got to put Dreamer in that. I mean, Dreamer and I have had how many matches? But it got to be in the hundreds, easy. And we had plenty of stuff to do on Heat. We had a pre-tape where I was hitting on Ivory. Victoria came in, and I was like, "Oh, thank God you showed up, Flowers." Just about to get in my pants, and Ivory and her go, and then the match comes, and it's her and Dreamer against Ivory and myself, and then it was Dreamer and myself in a singles with Victoria at ringside. Then, of course, we went from Raw with the hardcore title and the chair versus the cane stuff. Tommy's right up there with Goldust because Tommy wanted to make the match, wanted to make the angle. Also, we did one in catering where Victoria was stepping on there saying, "I'm Godzilla." That was part of the Stevie Night Heat exclusive with Al Stone. I put in these pre-tapes, promos, and storylines because they are really what makes the matches. So Dreamer's right up there with that.
So we'll go from D'Lo Brown, the Hurricane, Mark Jindrak, Johnny Stamboli, Aaron the Idol Stevens, who people better know as Damien Sandow, Sergeant Slaughter. Chris texted me and went, "Who is Jesus Aguilera?" And I think for people who may remember that, wasn't he like with Carlito?
He was with Carlito,
briefly?
Yeah. He was.
Yeah.
Big dude, really good dude out west in California. He worked the indies out there. You did leave one name off of here.
Cool.
Val Venus.
Why have I done that?
I don't know.
I must have thought I put him earlier and then I didn't.
Yeah, Val Venus and I had. If you're a fan of strong style, if you're a fan of like all Japan or Japanese style wrestling, it's kind of a light version. but hard-hitting stuff and just chemistry with two guys, Val and myself on Heat. Amazing chemistry, hit each other very hard in safe places, and just always figured out a way without totally prostituting the finishes out to kind of weave these false finishes in there. It's one of those things like, I guess if I wrestled Bret Hart, I would feel the same way, that I was in a match, that it was physical, but I could still take my boots off, go home, sleep, wake up the next day and work out. That's a Val Venus match.
I think you're right. I tried to search for ECMO and Chemo, and they didn't come up when I'd searched for TV shows, so it probably was a dark match, so I'm wrong about that. Someone you wrestled incessantly on Heat, it seemed, Maven. Why was he one of your worst opponents?
Wait, that's a leading question. I never said he was one of them. You son of a bitch. What are you doing? Stevie buries Maven. Get views on both channels. I react to Stevie burying me.
Hey, listen, he'll turn up at your house apologizing before you know it.
He wants us to react to that, by the way. He said we can use the footage.
I was in it.
Oh, you're in
I'm
it?
always in Maven's videos, yeah. Because
but-
it's the original video where I'm interviewing Maven about... This is about Rob Van Dam.
Yeah.
The latest one he put out.
The next
Yeah.
one's going to be, we're going to try to squeeze 6 to 9 months out of the Nair story next.
Man, I tell you, that one took a life of its own, that video.
It really
But anyway,
did.
yeah, Maven. How was he to work with in 2000? I guess 2003, because he would have had less than, maybe 18 months experience at that point.
Well, he was easy to work because he listened and because he was there. He was fundamentally sound because Al Snow taught him. And, all these different things lent to having an easier match. Now, I will say this. Sometimes timing was off, spacing was off. There's times where I missed him with the Stevie kick, and sometimes production didn't catch the right switch at the camera angle, and you saw I missed him. Maven needed at that point, if you look at him, there's a certain kind of fluidity and a certain kind of coordination and the way the body language moves that only improves with matches, reps, and experience. And if you look at Maven back then, I think the most comfortable he ever was when he worked with Simon Dean as a heel. You can see his body just kind of, it's almost like when he's in the ring at that point in Heat, you can't even see him breathing because he's just kind of and he's stiffer than he would be. And he'd probably say he was too green, but as the match progressed, he would get a little bit more comfortable. And as we worked more, that would kind of loosen up a lot. And that's when I look at guys that don't have experience, I can know just how they circle the ring. That, oh man, I don't even know if I want to lock up with this person. Maven wasn't there, but I had to keep it simple at that time for him to make sure. And there were times where he had, what I say, too much time, and I would tell them to shave the time off because it would expose him and the match if we went too long.
A few more names I'll mention. Rob Van Dam, we've talked about a couple of times on the show, and I'm sure he'll come up again. Al Snow, I'm sure will come up again. Tommy Dream, we've already mentioned. Lance Storm, we talked about not too long ago.
I actually had his retirement match. He requested me for that. Yeah.
There's someone we haven't brought up yet, Rico.
Oh, the one. This is actually one of my favorite matches in a lot of ways, and not in a lot of other ways with the kissing and the rubbing and all that stuff. But this was when Victoria had first kind of separated without any announcement or any storyline from the group and went out on her own. And I started to act like I wasn't quite myself, like post-breakup type thing. And Rico was doing the Rico stuff. I was still kind of a babyface, but during this match, I started to turn a little bit less tolerant to his antics. And in the very end, and this is weird. Back then, this just tells you what the time was. Rico rolled me up or something, pinned me. He did a roll on me, pinned me, and then he was selling his leg because I worked his leg. And Jackie Gaeta, who was with Rico at the time, came in. And this was approved, by the way. This wasn't like a Stevie Night Heat, like forgiveness rather than permission. They said, do this after the finish. So after checking on him, I grab her by the shoulder and I pie face her. And then I start wrapping his leg around the ring post and start doing and Alan Coach on commentary. And I think this is right after WrestleMania 20, like the Heat right after that. I'm not sure. or it might have been right before. It was right around WrestleMania 20. And then they shoot me just kind of like squinting my eyes like I'm tortured after I do it, and Rico's selling his leg. And we've never spoken of it since that time. We never had a second match at all. I actually wrestled Rico for the OVW title back in developmental when I was wrestling down there for HWA. And that is the infamous easy money 3.5 hour concussion in the shower story to not drop the belt. Easy Money said he fell in the shower. He was unconscious for over 3 hours. Therefore, he couldn't go to OVW to lose the title to Rico. So they put the title up in Rico versus myself.
Ah, I see. I was trying to figure out if that was real or not.
Oh, I don't think 3.5 hour concussion. You'd be dead.
I know. I was going to say
that's a coma. That's a coma, not a concussion.
I'm going to give you a couple more names. Stop me. There's one name I want to talk about. Rhino, William Regal. We talked about William Regal quite recently. Rosie, as you mentioned, does he go in your favourites? The Rosie?
Yeah, that match, because we traveled together and we got to kind of like have fun and talk about that. That was definitely something, the bucket list moment of working friends that you travel with. But the finish of that, people will be like, well, what did he finish you with? He finished me with a splash off the second as I was laying there. Or I think it was one match, it might have been a house show, or it was that Heat. He actually did a crossbody off the second and I caught him. That got a hell of a reaction, dude. That's where, by the way, not this. Oh, got the mic again.
So like the body slam?
No, because then he won't crush your face. You're bear hugging this way. That's the way I used to catch Hurricane. We can talk about that name next because I wrestled him a ton. As a matter of fact, we ended up having the Vertebreaker rebanned after a match.
Really?
Yes.
So it was banned twice, because I remember when he came over in 2001, he did it and that lasted 2 weeks. So who got it reapproved?
We did. Well, I think it was a live Heat before a pay-per-view. And we had wrestled before, and he was like, it's a live Heat before the pay-per-view. And I look at him, I go, Vertebreaker. Yeah. Actually, what I think I said to him was, to make him mad, was, he goes, you know what we need to do as a finish? I go, Cop Killer? Vertebreaker, brother. Because the Cop Killer was a homicide. That's who did it first.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah, he did it in Ring of Honor.
I thought, well, Shane Helms was doing it in WCW in 2000.
This is, you might be right. I'm not sure. They might have started doing it at the same time. That's interesting. In the comments, let us know. Because Homicide made that move famous in ROH. That was the first time I ever saw it. But you're right. He was doing the Vertebreaker as Sugar Shane Helms in WCW.
He was. I think he might have hit it on the last Nitro.
I don't know when Homicide started doing it. Obviously, Ring of Honor, it's after 2002. So it could be, I stand corrected, possibly.
So that's the Hurricane story. There's a couple more. There's one person I want to make mention of, Chris Jericho. You wrestled him on Heat. I think he beat you on Heat, but you beat him on Raw.
I wrestled him twice. Now, I beat him on Raw to further the storyline before WrestleMania 20 against Christian, because he got distracted by Christian on the ramp, and I ended up brawling him up because he was going for the Walls of Jericho, small package, and then he beat me up and he slammed me across the steps, which, my God, I was like, all right, I'll land flat. I was like, oh, it's got corners. I go, what was it? What was the Simpsons reference? Like, oh my God, I regret everything.
This is even more painful than it looks. You know, when he goes over the fire hydrant backwards.
Well, I had a fire hydrant replaced by the ring stairs. But we had two really, really good matches spaced out on Stevie Night Heat. I enjoyed those two matches. The second one especially, where Coach was actually a heel commentator, like kind of or heel-ish, telling me to like go after him and everything. So it was, Jericho and I had great chemistry. And I wish we could have made something out of those matches into a storyline, but it never really happened.
A couple more names. Stop me if you've got any particular stories. Shelton Benjamin, Rodney Mack, Chuck Palumbo. Any of those three?
Yeah, all good. All good. Shelton especially. If you want a story about Shelton, we wrestled in England, And that was the last time I got the purple lights and all the fancy made me look like a star. And it was really, really like, I'm like, wow, because the fans were into it. They were booing, all that stuff. They cut a little bit out of the beginning where they were really, really booing me and chanting against me. They cut that out. And you can see it goes to a close up from my entrance where I go, it's my show, not his show. Oh, I did that with Jericho, not his show, my show. But that was when the company had told the production people to never do that again, to never have lighting, never darken the arena for my entrance. They told me that. The people, Marty Miller, Stu, all those people.
Just another eye roller, isn't it? We'll talk about a couple of the, less good opponents. John Heidenreich. This was before Heidenreich was Heidenreich. This was John Heidenreich still, I think, before he was with Paul Heyman. Am I right?
Oh, he's Heidenreich no matter what, from day one till the last day in New Orleans. Can't hurt Stevie. Can't hurt Stevie. Can't hurt Stevie. Okay. Hopefully he's going to knock himself out before the match and I don't have to worry about it. Yeah, I do remember somewhat wrestling John Heidenreich before he became the Heidenreich that was the babyface. And then, of course, he became the Heidenreich with Michael Cole in the locker room that we all remember.
Yes, of course, the assaulter. This was 24th of November 2003, because for people who don't remember, I think I'm right in saying that he was on Raw for a short time. Wasn't he trying to make friends with people in vignettes backstage or something, and he was shunned constantly? Then he was taken off TV for ages. Then he ends up going with Paul Heyman and being a opponent for The Undertaker, and then Michael Cole goes through an ordeal.
Yeah,
and then he runs to the ring with a Hershey's chocolate bar. That's about it. Oh, and the awful Legion of Doom reboot. Well, that's about it for Heidenreich.
You missed probably one of the creepiest and maybe one of the best. I guess it wouldn't be Wrestle Crap, but it would be very disturbing.
Is it Snitsky?
Yeah, I like you. I like you too. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, it was very, very creepy. But they would have made a hell of a tag team because Gene knew what he was doing, could hide Heidenreich's weaknesses, and they could just be two monsters that just look like serial killers.
I'm trying to think if they did tag together. Heidenreich, I mean, you know this very quickly. I'm sure I said it on the show before. Just one day, he just snapped. And he was like, I'm done. I will never, ever wrestle again. He refused to leave the hospital. We did say this on this show because he refused to leave the hospital because he said the hospital food was too nice. When Fit Finlay and whoever else.
Must have been at the Mayo Clinic because when I was there, it was awesome.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it was amazing.
That's why in this country you got to go private for decent hospital food, I'll tell you. Right, one more name, of course. We've already said it recently, Tajiri. So for people who didn't watch that clip or see that on an episode, why was Tajiri difficult?
Well, besides what we suspect was the fake language barrier, different languages that he couldn't speak English, but he absolutely can speak English. It was just a clash of styles and a way of what to do. And he had such a reputation for sandbagging that I didn't discover until the match. I was like, there's no way. I mean, he's not a big dude. Had trouble picking him up. But when he was light as a feather when he was doing offense. It was just everything was right there. And we had great chemistry in the way where it was physical, much like a Val Venus one, but everything hurt. Everything felt like a chore. Everything felt like way too much effort. As Bret Hart would say, it was not a night off. It was not a night off at all. And I'm remembering, it was a good match. It's nothing that I'm not proud of, but looking at it, I'm like, man, that was so much rougher than it's presented on TV as far as like even just trying to talk it over. And he was being pushed. And Tajiri, I suspect, was one of the few that you could see the boo-boo face that he was demoted by being on Heat. And he wasn't going to kind of work with me enough. Because quite frankly, he probably saw me as not on his level.
Tajiri?
Well, you got to think, look at the way he was pushed, the way he was endeared, the titles he won. He did have a much better resume than I did. Hey, for all I know, Paul Heyman put the hit out too.
There's a couple more names that we'll just touch on briefly. You did have a singles match with Scott Steiner on Heat.
If you want to call it that.
Yeah, I didn't
just
watch
bump in
it.
feet for Scott and pray it gets over quick. But he was easy. He was so easy. He
A
was
few more names, just
He was ribbing me the whole day with Tess, by the way. They were standing there, and he was telling me to do drop kick off the top rope to the floor, this and that. And there's that 95 or 96% of me that's like, yeah, whatever. And then there's the 3 or 4. It's like, it's Scott Steiner. He's telling me what to do. What do I do? He's going to beat me up. You kind of want to, you know what I mean? Because I would laugh, and he'd be like, I'm not joking. Like, oh, okay. I said, well, I haven't done a drop kick off the top rope to the floor in ever. And he just kind of laughed. Then he was kind of like, oh, he might do it. I better just kind of like talk him down from the ledge.
I was going to say, you didn't do it, did you?
No, Johnny Stamboli took that one for me way back before
very
that.
good. A couple more names just briefly, because these are some future stars. Once again, I mentioned Aaron the Idol Stevens, Sean Devari, which is worth mentioning, Garrison Cade before he was Lance Cade. And I think there were a couple of other names as well, for people who have recognizable names more in the future as well.
Well, Devari, at that time, Sean Devari was doing the magic carpet ride splash with the rug off the top.
Loved that.
Yeah, he missed it, and I ended up hitting him with the Stevie kick for the finish. So yeah, Devari was definitely fun to work.
Yeah, that was so fun. That anybody? This is sort of the ending question. Apart from Tajiri, I guess, because you mentioned it, anybody complain about being on Heat rather than on Raw?
I don't know. The only time that I ever heard anything like Jericho, when we worked our first or second match, he went on for probably about a good 4 to 5 minutes saying, it's really great to just, work a Heat match once in a while and work a match that absolutely means nothing and I don't have to put any thought into. And it's just like nobody watches it. And I was like, is he ribbing me? Is he ribbing the it's just cool to just work and not have to worry about having a good match or anything. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm kind of worried. I'd like to have we had a great match. He wasn't feeling demoted, but he was looking at Heat like it was just nothing to be taken seriously in any regard.
Well, do you know who used to be on Heat all the time? Kane used to be on Heat all the time. Triple H wrestled on Heat. I'm pretty sure they're getting paid the same either way. And I mean, maybe it's just like the pressure's off.
Heat had different look to it because they were trying to get ratings during the Attitude. Heats were pretty strong, man. They were trying to get MTV at the time, and I think they transitioned over to USA after that. But during that time with MTV, they were trying to get the best talent on there because there was new eyes, I think, with the Heat product. So, and then it became what's called a secondary show. And dare I say it, you shouldn't treat any show like a secondary show. You should try to get the most out of everything.
Well, the problem is that they debuted SmackDown after just over a year of Heat coming out. And therefore, they tried to make Heat just as important as SmackDown for about, I think, 2 weeks. And then it was just, you just can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, even The Rock was on Heat at one time, remember? Vince was
Everyone
on
was
Heat.
on Heat.
Shane
Halftime
McMahon.
Heat.
Yeah. Live Heats, forget it. Live Heats before a pay-per-view, everybody's coming out, and they're giving you a Kane match, a Triple H match. I think even, didn't Austin wrestle Hunter on a Live Heat before a pay-per-view?
That's a good question.
He did, right? When Austin was just starting to get over as Stone Cold Steve Austin, he wrestled Hunter and beat him with the stunner, I think.
Googling it. Triple H's promo video package. Can't find it. So tell us in the comments if that's true or not. So the party is, in full swing with Stevie Night Heat. You're getting more confident, I guess, doing pre-tapes every single week, putting in your own storylines and all that kind of thing. And then you get caught. Just before you get caught, how many months was it, in the full Stevie's GM of Heat and doing the pre-tapes and just doing pretty much anything you wanted to do, really, within reason, to then all of a sudden you're in the crosshairs?
Well, I really have tried to figure out the exact amount of time. I would say 6 to 8 months, conservatively 6 months, which is still a long time. You're talking about, I was on Heat almost every week, if not every week. So what's it, 52 weeks in a year? So I was on 26 episodes minimum of Heat where they could have caught me previous. If not, another month or two, you say 8 months, That's another 8 matches, 8 segments, whatever it is, or multiple pre-tape and a match. So plenty of opportunity to get caught. That just proved they didn't care about it and they did not watch what they didn't care about. Now, I know the exact time we got caught because it's the story I told on WSI when you interviewed me. Coach and Al, as you talked about earlier in this episode, they beat Jerry Lawler and JR to be commentators on Raw. They were still commentators on Heat, but they were thinking about going full-time on Raw. So Victoria and I were trying to retain their services. Now, Stevie Night Heat and Stevie Corp, because Stevie Corp was actually a real corporation I still have today, Stevie Corp didn't have a lot of money. Stevie Corp couldn't afford to pay them Raw money, only Heat money. But we decided the next best thing. We were going to bake them pies. Unfortunately, Victoria was eating part of the pies when the pre-tape started. Now, picture this. I don't know if it's on the compilation. I hope it is. If it's not, if somebody has it, please send it to us. I'm standing there and basically talking to Victoria and then Coach and Al are in the locker room. I have an apron that I put in white magic marker, Kiss the GM, and then had a chef hat. And Victoria had the pie still in the clear plastic, half eaten, and we're trying to get them to stay with Stevie Night Heat. As this is happening, Johnny Ace is in the locker room laughing. He's, oh, this is the greatest shit I've ever seen. Oh my God, why did you tell me? Why didn't you tell me? I was like, well, you probably would have told Stephanie or Vince or somebody. Her ears must have been ringing. Because in comes Stephanie McMahon, who's never going, unless they were looking for a pre-tape for Raw or whatever, it never happened in the months previous. She walks in, and she did have a clipboard or a paper, so I know she was probably looking for a locker room space for a pre-tape for that night or a week or whatever was going on. And I remember seeing her out of the corner of my eye. The take was still going on. The pre-tape was going on, and I saw her out of the corner of my eye. You might even see me turn real quick to look into the camera and break the fourth wall. But I really saw her, and I go, oh, man, it's over. That's the first thought I had. And the pre-tape ends, and then I just hear out of my right ear, because I'm standing like this, the camera's over here. Coach and Al, I believe, are on the other side. Victoria's somewhere in the middle. And I hear Stephanie say, Johnny, when did Stevie become the GM of Heat? And Johnny goes in the full Johnny Ace mode. I don't know, Stephanie. I don't know. I just walked in. What the hell's Stevie? What the are you doing? Bleep that out, Chris. Look, what the are you doing, Stevie? Stevie, God, what did Stephanie? I'm so sorry. But he's laughing and smiling as he's saying it, like almost winking at me. And I'm like, and it's like, oh, okay. Oh, I'm okay. And just walks away. I'm not booked on Heat. Like now they're looking. Now I'm not on Heat for, it's got to be 2 to 4 weeks, maybe minimum. Stephanie comes up to me. And by the way, I'm wearing Stevie Night Heat tights and shorts for almost the whole time. The pink ones. Then I got the Heat ones that have actually the Heat logo on them, the black and orange. Richie and Magic is beginning to make a Stevie Night Heat championship belt, which I'm still thinking about making. So there's clues everywhere. All you got to do is watch 2 minutes of Heat and go, I even was trying to get them to make an alternative, like, you know, how NWO has the, like, you know, the thing opens up and it goes black and white and it burns the film. I wanted Heat to have that kind of, like BWO did that back in ECW. ECW Open happened and it paused and it said, the following announcement has been paid for by the Blue World Order. And it was like, it froze the ECW thing and went into a BWO opening, taking over the show. I wanted that, but it couldn't happen because that probably would have been too much on the nose. So 2 to 4 weeks minimum, I'm off Heat. Stephanie comes up to me one day and she goes, Stevie, we have a great idea for you. Since you're on Heat all the time and you're a heel and you're kind of crazy, we thought, what if Stevie thinks that he actually is the GM of Heat and you own the show And get this, instead of calling it Sunday Night Heat, pause, 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 uncomfortable stare. What's going on? Why are you looking at me? Now it's scaring me. Finally, she says, we're going to call it Stevie Night Heat. I expected her to throw the clipboard down like a mic drop, walk away like she just, like cured tuberculosis or something. So I'm looking, and in my mind, it feels like 2 minutes before my reaction. And I'm looking at her, she's staring at me, and I go, that's an awesome idea. Thank you so much for thinking of that, Stephanie. She goes, yeah, we're always thinking of something for you, Stevie. You're a great talent. Now go run Heat. Yeah, I felt like saying, you mean like the last 8 months? It's a great idea. And then I came back on Heat, and it might have been a month. It wasn't the same because now they were micromanaging. No more pre-tapes, no more nothing. Just come out with the tights and act like you're the GM. And then it was gone. I couldn't honestly, and as we were trying to get part 2 together, we were obviously going to talk about how it ended. I have no clue. It's like a lot of other things. Boom, it's over. I'm just not booked. I'm just not brought in on Heat. I don't have matches. It's just what it was. And I think after that, I was on Velocity. And I started coming out of Wrestle Bob Holly saying, now this is my show. This is my show. Just trying to recreate it.
Who was micromanaging it the second time?
Well, I think they were micromanaging because I couldn't get a pre-tape. I couldn't get a production person. It was found out. WWE was aware of it. So now it was, you have a match against this person. I said, well, can we have a pre-tape? No, there's no time for a pre-tape. So there must have been something brought down to say, you can't have this anymore. Why would it so drastically change from what it was?
Do you know who your very last opponent was on Heat? It wasn't in the list I gave you.
I do not know. Scoot Andrews?
Chris Benoit.
Onyx? Oh, wow.
Yep.
I probably didn't want to go back on Heat after that.
Chris Benoit, 6 minutes.
Running for my life.
6 minutes, 30 seconds, US Bank Arena, Cincinnati, Ohio. That was February.
You want to hear something?
That was on Valentine's Day, in fact.
I'm not saying, oh, good Lord.
Yeah.
No comment.
Benoit, that old romantic.
So I was running. He wasn't bringing me flowers. He was bringing me a beating. That was actually one of my least favorite matches and one of my hardest matches to work. And I'm not saying this in retrospect because of the obvious. It was rough. It was not what I expected. And I was really friendly with Chris. And I thought this is going to be like a Val Venus type. Styles are similar, right? It just did not translate. He was like moving a block of ice. It was just weird to be able to, and everybody's had good matches, so it must have been my fault. And I'm saying that, not other people. I just could not sync up with him for match chemistry. It just was like the way I sold, the way I moved, the way I tried to powder and beg off. He didn't like that. He didn't feel like, he always tried to close the distance and never allowed me to sell, never allowed me to truly get my character over. And I don't know if it translates, but it really was one of the worst matches feeling-wise and fulfillment-wise afterwards. And he wasn't happy with it afterwards either. He kind of just shook my hand and walked away. It just didn't sync up.
Let's stick with that then. So how long, I mean, maybe it's straight away, but like you lock up for the first time or however, you're the first touch. When do you know it's just not right, a match?
I know it's not right when he starts chopping me and I'm trying to sell to all four corners and he's not saying, stand still, come here, don't run away. He's not saying that for the crowd or the TV. He's telling me. And I would say during the match, dude, I'm just trying to sell. I'm trying to be a heel. Don't. Well, okay. And I just kept doing it. And it kept being like really, really weird. Even when he Germaned me, he gave me the string of Germans and I was trying to do the grab the rope thing and he was launching me to the point where we were supposed to a spot where he Germaned me and then he ended up drop kicking me out to the floor. Well, number one, he Germaned me like near the hardest part of the ring where I didn't, because I told him I'll just roll to that rope that's closest. He Germaned me and he put some stink on that last German. And the drop kick, we can literally watch it as what went wrong. The drop kick literally landed me on like the back of my head. He drop kicked me for real. He was so mad. And it was just like, I just, even the crossface was weird. He grabbed me with the opposite arm, not the left arm, but the right arm. And it was just a weird crossface. It just was one of those things that did not translate well. It wasn't bad, but it was really bad in my mind. And he wasn't happy with it either.
Is this a
And we really didn't even talk after that. We used to kind of talk and just general conversation. After that match, things were really, and he had a lot more going on. I'm not saying that, but things were really, really weird with us after that, where it was a lone goodbye, but not even pleasantries after that.
Is it, because of the things I've heard of Chris Benoit as a worker, I mean, some people have said he's the greatest wrestler of all time. I sort of completely disagree with that, because it seems like you either worked to his style or it didn't work at all. He wasn't like as adaptable. I mean, not that he couldn't do technical wrestling, some high flying, some brawling, but it always seemed to be on his terms. He wasn't, he wouldn't like sort of adapt to the person he was wrestling sometimes.
I agree with you. He's not the greatest worker that ever lived. He's not the greatest wrestler that ever did that. If you're looking at a greatest like foundational wrestler that can wrestle and chain wrestle and still have emotion and also put the opponent where they need them to put them, that's William Regal. 100%. William Regal can have me stand in the middle and just wrestle around me as I don't move and make it look like I'm fighting him, I'm doing this, he'll reverse his own hold and have me put him in the hold. Regal can wrestle every style. It might not seem that way because his style is so, I guess, odd to some people. It can be construed as odd. But you're right. Benoit was literally somebody in a way that
not one-dimensional.
He was almost one-dimensional. He could work a bunch of people, but that was my strength. I could work a Chris Benoit style, but you have to allow my personality and character as a heel to work within the guardrails of your character. During that match, he didn't even allow me to do that. There was some, and like I said, he was going through a ton of stuff. He could have just that day had an off day, was very stringent and intolerant with what he wanted to do, and what more specifically, what he did not want me to do. And that was the match.
Do you think, because this is a 6.5 minute match, so it's not a short match by Heat standards, because most of them would go, 3 or 4 minutes or 5 minutes maybe. I mean, was he just looking at you as a body for 6.5 minutes? Because if he was looking at it as an enhancement match only, in that sense, he couldn't have been if you were given 6.5 minutes plus entrances, surely.
No, he didn't view me as that. As a matter of fact, we were having conversations like maybe there was so much pressure in his mind that he wanted to help elevate me or put me back on the map or on the radar. And he put a lot of pressure on that. But then again, we talked the match over like it was going to be cooperative. And it was cooperative. It was just the in-between stuff. The pacing and the rhythm was completely off. He was wrestling a very rough 6 minutes where I was trying to wrestle a storyline based, partially at least, even in the first couple minutes, to establish something. So, hey, a little Easter egg on the commentary too, when Todd Grisham says, or somebody says, everybody loves Chris Benoit.
Yeah, well, aged like milk, that one. But
yeah, pretty much.
Just because I just put Chris Benoit, Stevie Richards, and the first thing, apart from the match that actually does come up, so if you want to have a look at a couple of things, we can do it now. But there is, where did Stevie Richards subbing for Chris Benoit come from? So, I mean, you must have seen the meme.
Yeah, I mean, I subbed for Big Show with the video game, and then the Chris Benoit meme happened where I was the one that won the world title at WrestleMania in the three-way dance, all that stuff. Yeah. I don't know if there's a way we can monetize that in 2025, that I'm the meme replacement for anybody that gets disappeared. As a matter of fact, with the Hogan stuff, with the first Hall of Fame removal, I think people started to replace me with Hogan or Hogan with me.
See, you can replace quite a lot of people in the Hall of Fame. So you just have your head over Tammy Sitch, Hulk Hogan, Jimmy Snuka. There are a load.
It's actually the only way. It's literally the only way I'm going to get into the Hall of Fame.
If you want to have a look at the match, that's fine. We can do that. I wanted to bring up one thing very quickly, is that one of my very last interviews...
Let's do a watch-along on Patreon. Let's do next week.
We will do that, absolutely. Scott Norton was like my second to last or last interview I ever did on WSI, and I really like talking to Scott Norton as well. He's a dead interesting dude, and he, tons of experience. And I said, look, I'm going to give you a really unfair question. Benoit or Eddie Guerrero, who was the better worker? Or in fact, I framed it this way. If you had to wrestle only one person for the rest of your career, Benoit or Guerrero? And he sat there for ages and thought, well, I love Benoit as an opponent, but Eddie was so much more varied in what he could do. He could do the silliest match in the world and it'd be wildly entertaining. He could do serious technical, better high fly. However he shaped it, he went. Eddie was way more of an all-rounder than Chris Benoit. And I know people compare the two, like Brett and Shawn, I guess. But at least in Scott's mind, who wrestled both of them frequently, said Eddie was all-round the better worker in that sense.
Well, I wouldn't have to think about that for a nanosecond. I would pick Eddie Guerrero 100 times out of 100. And that's no personal slight on Chris. It's not a night off. Eddie's a night off, and Eddie, you can make moments just based on the fact of the lie, cheat, steal finish. You can be part of a memorable moment. With Chris, outside of the finish or a big bump, what storyline or fun memories did Chris ever create in the ring? I mean, fun like anything, and he's not that type of worker, but that leads to the lack of multi-dimensional talent that he had. He was a wrestler, not a worker. How's that?
This is future episode Take a Drink. We're going to have to do Eddie versus Benoit. As far as just, a full episode dedicated to
the one night stand match?
No. We watched that, and I think we probably didn't watch it for the thing, but it for some reason didn't work out. But I'm just talking about an entire episode dedicated to those two. As far as you can, because we did this a few times in the early episodes. We did it with, for some reason, Kevin Nash and Logan Paul, and we did it for Brett and Shawn. So, and then, we had a table of 10 things out of 10, and, everyone complained because it wasn't exactly what they would have said, and it's good for a chit-chat.
You know who we haven't done, which was it's far past that, but the dream match for when I was a kid growing up was Hogan versus Flair. We can break down who we think,
yeah,
because there's a lot to be said with that, with Hogan and Flair.
Versus Flair. I'm writing it down right now. Right, there we go. Future episodes coming up. We've already got 2 WCW episodes coming up. We've got the developmental episode coming up. We've got tons. We've got absolutely tons. We're not going anywhere. I remember very, very early on, we got the occasional comment on the episodes saying, you're going to run out of topics soon. I was like, no, we're not. We will never run out of topics. Do you remember when I sent you a Google Drive
the present day business just keeps giving that gift to us anyway.
Yeah, but we don't do news that much. That's the thing. We do some news occasionally.
Well, even what went wrong, what went right, there's plenty to talk about.
Going back to Stevie Night Heat and how it ended. So, before we do, the micromanagement, that was just more of a nebulous thing because you just knew people were watching you and therefore you couldn't get anything cleared.
Well, I don't think it was micromanagement in the strictest definition of the word. Like they were over top and saying you can do this but can't do that. It was just a constant rejection of what previously got approved. So there must have been an edict put down to say no pre-tapes on Heat. Don't give Stevie this. You need to clear it with us first. And I guess the production people said, well, we're caught. What are we going to even try to put the effort in to get this through? And it did change the mood of the whole thing. It felt a lot more like we were just working Heat. There was no more of that, like, we can get away with this. I just, you have the feeling how does it happen where Stephanie finds out, Johnny laughs, throws us under the bus, never knew, and then I'm off for a month to make people forget about that presentation. Then I come back just to work matches, and commentators refer to me as the GM of Heat, but there's never pre-tapes or angles or matches connected to it.
Just to fill people in as well, after the Benoit match with Stevie, that was his last appearance on Heat. Then it was Chris Masters on Raw, and we know what happened there with the nose breaking. Then you wrestle Chris Masters again 4 months later, and then you're taken off TV for another 2 months, and then you go to Velocity with the Blue World Order thing very briefly, and then Velocity a bit, and then you're taken off television for 9 months. And then you're back to the ECW, the WWE version of ECW. But that is a story for another day. For Stevie Night Heat, do you have a suspicion there was a stooge who stooged it off, if it was Johnny, or do you think it was just happenstance Stephanie happened to see?
Ooh, that's a great question. You think somebody clued her in that we're doing this and she happened to walk in? It's not out of the realm of possibility. For all we know, Johnny told her, and Johnny went in first to make sure the pre-tape, this can all drive you nuts. It's over. It's fine. Thank you once again to the person who created the compilation to still keep the memory of Stevie Night Heat alive. And I appreciate people still appreciating the fact that we did that, including the boys still talk, like Maven, Dreamer, and other people talk fondly about those times.
Did you ever speak to Vince McMahon about Stevie Night Heat?
Oh, God, no. I learned I made him I should have spoke to him after that about the Ken Kennedy match either. That was another 4 months off.
When was that? Was that on?
That was after they showed, that was the Velocity match with Bob Holly.
Yeah.
Where he brought the tape in and basically showed it to the talent meeting.
So, is that pretty much it then? I'm just looking at all the follow-up questions, if there are any. Stevie Night Heat continues for a little while. Any segments? So there were no real segments in the second stint of Stevie Night Heat. It wasn't the same. So once again, just to clarify, the second time, it just kind of fizzled out. There wasn't any edict saying it's not happening, but also at the time, you were being taken away from Victoria as well.
There were a ton of things. This was actually worse than the Wacko Stevie Sunday Night Heat days with Raven, the Hardys, and stuff like that. This was literally now you did feel like you were demoted to a show that nobody cared about. And they were drawing, dude, you saw the ratings. Some were drawing 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 for a taped show on a Sunday night. I think some people would kill to have those ratings now.
Yeah, well, AEW would. Probably WWE would. If you believe what they're apparently drawing on Netflix these days.
So the overall numbers used to be under 1 million. They were going to tap under 1 million before on USA, remember?
Yeah. I'm just having a look as well. So if we say for 2004, yeah. It's, in the, is that the early bits? Yeah, no, that's January, hovering in the 1.1s, 1.0s, and then slowly goes down till it's averaging 0.8 or 0.7 or something like that by the end of 2004. So yeah, there you go. It's that little underground hit, and as soon as they find out, they have to make it theirs and then ruin it.
Well, you as a fan, let me ask you this question. Everybody out there, please comment below. You as a fan, you talked about you're off for 4 months, you're off for 9 months, you start doing Stevie Night Heat, then all of a sudden there's no Stevie Night Heat, then you come back and it's completely watered down. As a fan watching that, or somebody not as connected to know what's going on, what's your impression? Because when I was a kid and I would see a wrestler I kind of liked working, or, saw them wrestling or working, and then they were off for 2 months and they came back, my initial thought as a fan who knows no better, well, this person doesn't take their career seriously. They don't care about wrestling. They only kind of do it when they want to. They're not as good as the other guys because they don't come up every week to wrestle. Did you kind of think that about me and other people?
As a kid, I'll tell you who's crystal clear at this time. We mentioned him quite a few times, even in this episode, I think, Goldberg. And it's around the same time. I remember as a kid thinking, I remember what Goldberg was. Why are you not giving me, the fan, the Goldberg that I want? And there's no explanation. And it's the same for you. Heat in 2002 was so much fun. And it was still worth watching at that point. And then by 2004, 2005, it's content to fill time. That's it. And there's no heart left in it. And then you just start watching. But yeah, I always think in that era, that post Attitude era, the Ruthless Aggression era, the Goldberg thing stood out to me the most. It's like, I know what I want as a fan. I can express it clearly, concisely. You must know as well why you're not giving it to me. And look at the ratings, not just for Heat but for Raw and everything else. They were not giving the fans what they demanded, and a lot of people have got a wrestling obsession and just watch anyway, but just don't enjoy it as much as they did a few years earlier, when there's a bit more autonomy, a bit more fun, a bit more just what it should have been.
A bit more creative output for the input that's been put into it. The wrestling business is fascinating. You know why? It's a miracle that the wrestling companies make money, because it feels like it's not their top priority. Sometimes it feels like it's not even their top 5 or 10 priorities to make money and grow the business. They just want to play games and they want to F with people. That's what they get their rocks off on. The Vince McMahon era, even the Triple H era, I can see them messing, or it's kind of like lying by omission. You're not outwardly burying somebody, but you're definitely not pushing them. And that's just as bad.
Yeah, but if in 2002, I would have been 15, 16. I wasn't reading the news websites religiously at that point, so I didn't know, all the inner workings, or supposedly what the inner workings were. But I could see it as crystal clear as anything. I knew something was up, and I just wanted to, like with the draft thing. It's like, why are you not giving the fans what they want? The last thing fans want is to have restrictions placed on who can wrestle who. Even if you had a soft draft and you just didn't, express it like that. It's like all there were just restrictions, and you could even see the egos play out on television to a point where you had your favourites for them, your Rob Van Dams or your Kanes or your Booker T's, for goodness sake. I know we're going early 2000s for those references. Even your Chris Jerichos and people like that. Why are they... They're the people you tune in to watch, not Triple H. Not, at the time, Randy Orton or Batista, really. I know I'm picking on Evolution at the time as well, but I think that's a really good example of it. But just WWE had so much talent, and they were just not giving people what they wanted.
And I was there, so I couldn't even tell you, if there was any kind of mission statement or there was some kind of memo, or I just know who the favorites were and who. It's not even like you're hated or you're looked down upon or they're actively against you. It's just like I said before, if Vince McMahon would go up to Triple H and say, hey, what do you think about that guy? The not a yes is every bit as damning as the no. And that's the trick. Hunter never buried me, but he sure as hell didn't say yes. I'm talking about all talents that had that golden shovel treatment, as people talked about. It's become a meme. So even now, this dude, like we joked about on Russo, this guy is now narrating the writer's show, Triple H.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how much is enough, especially with a heart condition? Dude, take it easy.
He just said on the post-show press of the Night of Champions, or the crowd was saying, one more match or whatever, and he said, if that is the last thing I do, then that would actually be the last thing I would do. As in, I would die if I tried to wrestle one more time. So he's clearly pretty sick still, or his heart just can't take this kind of thing. But yeah, that.
But I have that. There's that thing in the back of the mind where he's keeping himself relevant, and he did that thing with Rock. If Rock ever comes back, his work is done here. But I just think he will have one more match, or he will be involved in some way, in some physicality within a match, even if it's a 2-minute match for the feel-good moment. Yes, but I tell him, I agree with you. Please don't make it the last thing you ever do by having a last match. We've learned from Ric Flair what can happen to your heart in a match. I mean, I've talked about my medical past too. We've edited some of that stuff out. I'm afraid that could happen to me. And I do cardio every day, and I'm not a big weightlifter anymore. I use bands. My joints are feeling good, and that's very dangerous when you apply the ego to it. That's why I think eventually this guy's going to have a match.
just before we move off on this, just a few more things. Just once again, as a fan, and I kept saying, you're not giving me what I want. Well, guess what happened to the hardcore division? Taken away. So, well, there's a load of fun. There's a fun segment every single week that's now gone. 2002. The Intercontinental title for a year was gone. The European title was gone now. So there's nothing for anyone to fight for as singles. All the tag teams were split up. So, well, and Matt Hardy did great with it. I think his run was more memorable than Jeff's as a singles run at that time. But then no more Dudleys, no more Hardys, no more. There was already no more Edge and Christian, no more APA. They were just. I don't know why WWE just looked at the roster, looked at what they were doing, and thought, I know what we need to do. Strip the programming of everything that people look forward to. Or if they're your favourites, tough, well, we're going to present them in our way, or we're not going to present them at all. Like the Goldust Tourette's thing. What was that about? I was like, I remember watching that thinking, I don't want Goldust presented like this. He was doing great with Booker T. Then they changed it.
I couldn't have an answer for that. I'm going to fast forward it because you think it's still the ruthless aggression era. I'm going to fast forward. They had the perfect answer and the perfect recreation to protect a category of talent that Eric Bischoff did an amazing job with on Nitro, the cruiserweights. The cruiserweights were special on Nitro. Now, as time went on, obviously, but that was a draw of the special attraction, the variety show, and giving somebody lucha libre, the high-flying stuff, and having that stand out in a sea of monsters like Hogan, Nash, Hall, Goldberg, all that stuff. The Cruiserweight Classic is a tournament that I still watch while I'm doing cardio in 2025. Then they ruined that. They could have just recreated it, kept it as its own thing. Obviously, 205 Live, all these things. And I'm not just saying that because I posted that picture on the community post of that I sent you, where I weigh 190 pounds. But the Cruiserweight Classic was something that you could have right up there with King of the Ring, featuring talent from all over the world once a year to come in. Here's a tournament that we feature across all the TVs, including NXT. That's why I saw it as a great opportunity to not use the lightweight talent or the small talent as fodder or feeding to the bigger talent, but having them special and having them showcased. It's kind of like your version of a acrobatic murder hour, if you think about it.
I never minded with the cruiserweights. When they just, they'd obviously do too much and fly everywhere and completely work different to the heavyweights. But in my mind, fans create their own storylines to justify things occasionally. It's like, well, they're so much lighter, they can take much more punishment, and they're not as strong as strikers, and that's why they go so much more fast, and they can take more bumps like that. I loved it. I loved it when it was completely different styles and different segments and everything. It was so much better. And then WWE, specifically in the WWF, when they tried to do their light heavyweight division, that essentially was Taka Michinoku, is that they, for the most part, just made them all wrestle like heavyweights anyway. Because...
Well, yeah, they mixed in with Scott. Scott Taylor was into that. Brian Christopher, that was the era of the Taka Michinoku, S.A. Rios, all those guys during the Attitude Era. But it still had a really fun kind of presentation that was different than the slower, bigger guys compared to them.
Yeah, but they didn't focus on that at all. So there was never any importance. And then Taka ends up turning heel for some reason because... What was she called? What was the sister called? Mrs. Yamamoto.
Oh, you talking about Choppy
Yeah. All of a sudden it ends up being Choppy Pee-Pee, and then Gilbert wins the title and then takes it off TV for over a year. Right, we are going to leave that there. That is Stevie Night Heat Part 2 done, but we've got some What Went Wrong and What Went Right segments as well. What are we going to do first? Is it going to be What Went Right?
Let's go bad news first, good news second.
Ooh,
so what went wrong?
Okay, then. So what's going to be the What Went Wrong?
Let's get the X-Pac out. You're now please don't find any more people tearing urethras and penises and buttholes and all that stuff. I can't even believe I just said that.
Okay, so, torn buttholes, X-Pac. What happened?
I don't know because I haven't watched it yet because I'm not, like, when you send me a video like this, I'm like, oh, I got to rush right to the computer and watch this video. I know this happened. My heart goes out to Sean. I know that you got a quote, and he was very gracious about it and very kind of, I don't know, to like a good sport about it. But I'm going to watch this. Yes, it's the only way you can really handle it, to not feed the monster of, he's not selling for it. I know he's selling for this, but he's not selling for the actual thing. So let's take a look.
So this is about 2-minute video. I think it's in like the first 20 or 30 seconds.
Jerry Lynn?
This is Jerry Lynn's retirement show. What a tribute.
Oh, wow. Who's this right here?
But this is Jerry Lynn's retirement show. I thought it was like Dr. Luther then for a second.
Is that one of the... Oh, I thought it was one of the clowns. I'm going to say this. Nice try. X-Pac or Sean Waltman is not going to hurt you. But watch this guy's right hand. I'm going to go slow. So incredibly underrated. I put the hand up. He's going to kick the chest. Did you see that? So I just want to say this. This guy, I always say this about a lot of people. This guy is definitely one of the most underrated talents, one of the most underrated heels. This guy gets so much heat. Dare I say it, I know there was some stuff going on in the NWO. When he joined the NWO, like he was just that person, like the little, what was it, like Mutt and Jeff, the little guy that runs around and talks a lot of crap and tries to really rile up the babyface and get everybody else into trouble. That's what he reminded me of, not only in WCW, but also when he went back with DX. He was just that one guy that was like talking, seemingly you could talk the most amount of crap and get the whole group in trouble. That's a heel.
We need to talk about X-Pac Heat in a minute after this. I've got it as notes, but I wanted to get your take on it. But here we go.
Oh. Now, here's the thing. He's missed this a ton of times. And in theory, when you do this, there he is, right on the turnbuckle. Theory, when you do this, it's even an easier bump because you're just hitting. Now, I would say this. Usually, maybe because the ropes are too high or spread out in a way a little bit, usually his arms go over that top rope and he kind of straddles it because he's not a short guy. He's a pretty tall, lean guy. It's deceptively tall. Let's see. Now, do you think it's the little slide right there that catches him? Or do you think that when they put the pad on, it wasn't fully covering that bolt? That's my guess. Let's go. It literally doesn't look like anything, does it, James? As far as other ones. The only thing I can think of is right here that the bolt is sticking out and he slides slightly in that direction after the bump. Like, watch. Boom, that part right there. I think that's the part where it slides off the turnbuckle and it's on this part right here. And you can see there's a hook here and then there's usually a bolt there that screws in, or even sometimes another hook that goes into there. That's really dangerous, actually. It's weird how it hasn't happened to more people. Did he hit him with a chair afterwards?
So Sean Waltman does an X Factor after that as well, which of course
on his butt,
aka the Rampage. I think if Conan did it, but yeah. Are we all?
Now I'm looking.
Are we
all
doing the thing to see if there's any I hate to use the word seepage or blood coming out?
I wanted to see if he was bleeding, but most people wear, like, he has tights on, and I think he might have biker shorts or compression shorts as well. So it might have tore the actual part or maybe the inside, but there's nothing here that says that he's bleeding. But obviously he's selling, but he just missed the Bronco Buster. So obviously you're going to sell that part of your body. So let's go to the X Factor.
The eternally...
He takes a table bump too.
The eternally youthful Jerry Lynn as well.
Great table bump. Oh, he hit his head like...
Dude, that's like a Japanese
that
table.
Part there doesn't look like much, but the slide off on the top of his head getting like El Kabonged or Barney Rubble on that thing. I honestly couldn't tell you. I like the part where he puts his hand up, but he gets he misses it. But
Yeah, there just seems to be just a
it's
little
that
slide.
little slide.
Yeah.
That's that little slide right there that did it. So, okay. Are we done watching people tearing urethras? And what was the actual injury, the official diagnosis of the injury?
I'm going to give you first off, I don't know if it's a girlfriend or just friend at the time, Alicia Webb, the former Ryan Shamrock, in fact, in the WWF, tweeted, and maybe not quite as sensitive as you might expect, but we don't know if there is a medical term for it, but he did a Bronco Buster last night that literally ripped his ass apart. Lost a lot of blood, had surgery this morning, and is on the road to recovery. Believe it or not, this has happened to him once before.
Really?
That would only happen once to me. That move would be retired, man, if that was the result.
Yeah, but his trap is the Bronco Buster is definitely something you pay to see with X-Pac. Now, what I would do is nobody ever moves now. The person is going to break my fall because he's running. And by the way, one of my favorite spots to do if Chris wants to be rolling in, the Bobby Eaton one, which is the second turnbuckle Bronco Buster. I always miss that. So potentially that could have happened to me. That was my favorite spot for a double down or something before a finish. And Bobby Eaton made that famous by doing it on the second turnbuckle. So man, if I knew about that and I was active, I'd never do it again.
Sean would also do this a lot if he was going to go for the Bronco Buster and they moved, that he would just put both feet on the bottom turnbuckle and then stop himself, which would probably be a babyface thing instead of, hurting himself, I guess. Have you ever taken the Bronco Buster, or at least a Bronco Buster?
I took a version against Goldust. Victoria ran to do something. Goldust got out of the way, and she hit me with the Bronco Buster. So it was like she was trying to jump at Goldust. He moves, and she ended up doing that to me. It's like the old, I did it with Jazz and Victoria before, where basically they whip me into Victoria. I splash her. I take a back bump. She stumbles out. Headbutt right there. And once I did it to her, and she sold it like a dude.
Now, this is what X-Pac posted, or Sean Waltman posted, really. Thank you, everyone, for the kind wishes and some funny one-liners I'm sure were hard to pass up. If you can't laugh at yourself, who can you laugh at? The video doesn't do justice to the severity of the situation. The turnbuckle wasn't covered, and my landing should have been 45 degrees. I ended up landing hard and horizontal. He sort of does, doesn't he? So he sort of lands and then slides forward completely, doesn't he? Yeah. As you pointed out. The turnbuckle ripped me another new hole. And I knew right away, you can see me tell ref, I tore my ass. That's a quote. I went to the after party briefly, but had to leave as blood started gushing. So it got even worse afterwards, apparently. Hotel looked like a murder scene. So much blood. I'm typing in... Oh, there we go. I'm typing in the dark. Sorry for typos. Well, we forgive you. Hotel security called ambulance and whoever it is performed a sphincterplasty to save me from having to have a colostomy bag. It's hard not to laugh. So feel free to find it humorous. I did almost bleed out before ambulance got there. I did the X Factor from the top rope and won through a table after it happened. My concern was Jerry getting the proper send-off, not my butthole.
Whew. Dude, I mean, I don't want to laugh. I don't want to have a good laugh or a one-liner from it. I'm looking at it and going, you almost died. You were bleeding out. And also the terrifying prospect about having a colostomy bag, which I would say, would that be a temporary thing or would it be something that would be a little bit more permanent? Usually a colostomy bag, like George Animal Steel had one, other people I know had them, and that was it. I don't know if that was just something, I would assume from the surgery that you're going to the bathroom is going to be a problem. So I would think that would be a necessity and hopefully a temporary necessity for him. So, man, to bleed out that much, because as wrestlers, you're thinking, okay, well, I'm bleeding. It can't be that bad. It can't be any more than a cut here, maybe need stitches, whatever. I'll just go back to the room. He must not have thought much of it by going to the after party and then going back to the hotel. It must have been constantly bleeding. He's a good dude, man. Thank God he's still here, and that would be not the way to go.
He's doing really well, I think, these days as well, because, he's been very open. He's had issues with drugs for many years, and then the last few years, I guess he lives out in California and just got fit and healthy.
He had like a really great studio with a podcast for. Does he still have that?
No,
going on?
that went a few years ago. I think
he was an excellent voice within the industry, and obviously he has to kind of at that point he's on and off WWE TV as he has his X-Pac podcast, but it was out there and like it looked like a Chris Van Vliet production before Chris Van Vliet.
Yeah, it was like an early. Yeah, it was a way earlier version of it, wasn't it? But
yeah, like screens in the back and stuff, video wall.
Yeah, it's popular.
Great stuff, dude. Sean, do it again, man, because he was really, really killing it when he had that show. I enjoyed it.
So we're going to end on this one and a positive note, and it's going to be what went right. And it's that bully, Charles Robinson, getting his comeuppance at WWE Night of Champions. I've sent you a couple of videos. One of them is a comparison from 2008 as well. But Stevie, tell us what went right.
Thank you, James. I want to preface this, by the way. We talked about the Chris Benoit match where basically I was trying to beg off to get away from him, and he refused to create distance. He kept closing the distance. That's how Charles Robinson used to bully me backstage all the time in catering, where I would try to be like, get away from me, Charles. That's enough. He's like, no, come here. And unfortunately, I have no defense against a southpaw, and Charles is left-handed, and that's a bad combination. So, and I told him yesterday, I checked on him about this spot. I said, are you okay? And he goes, yes. And the second he answered, I said, is this because you would like incessantly bully John Cena and he had enough? And he said, yes. And I fully believe him. So let's take probably 75 years old now and still looks like he's 20.
Yeah, he's somehow older than Ric Flair. Big Nate.
Didn't do the slow down and look and telegraph that he was going to get the pounce, as Monty Brown would say. He literally got pounced. That's amazing. Let's slow it down and zoom it in. Look at that leg. That right leg. Right there. He could have broke his ankle. That's tough. Look at it. I just want to remind everybody, these mats are so tight, you might as well land on the floor. It's not a cushioned mat. But he did deserve it. I mean, let's think about it. I've known Charles forever. He deserved that. And Cena, this is the moment in my mind where John Cena turned babyface. White meat babyface. I salute you, John, and hit the microphone twice.
Why do you?
That's a 10 bell. That's a 2-bell salute, a 2-mic salute for Charles Robinson. Rest in peace.
Why do you call Charles Robinson a bully?
Because he bullied me. He would not stop bullying me. And he would grab my wrist really hard, and he would hit me so hard with a left in the shoulder, and he would snatch me. Sometimes he would steal my food in catering. He was a lunchtime cafeteria bully. And he needs to be stopped.
Well, he was.
Yes.
This might be weird. We're going to do a comparison of the running in a minute, but is there any way you can take the pounce and not make your legs do that and keep it a bit safer, or do you just have to hope for the best?
Well, the only way you can really take the pounce, and it's a thin line. It's a thin line of expecting it and jumping too early, or potentially having your feet underneath you as you bump and break your leg, break your ankle, tear your urethra, whatever it might be. But with that being said, probably the best thing you can do is run as fast as you can, and then as you're taking the pounce, kind of turn into it and then jump in the air afterwards. But then you don't know how far you're going to, he could have landed on the steps. But as a bully, he kind of deserves it. So I'm just going to keep driving that point home because Charles is a friend of the show.
So somebody on...
I think he would have never had on his bingo card. I know I'm not on the camera. He would have never had on his bingo card that we are actually dedicating an entire segment to Charles Robinson being a
He'd
bully.
appreciate it, though, wouldn't he? Oh, if
he's
he was
an
still with us, of
egomaniac.
course,
He would
because
love
John
it.
Cena did kill him.
No, he's coming back. I have no doubt that he double-legged John Cena in Gorilla and threw him down the steps.
So this video here I found on Facebook, and it's a comparison of Charles Robinson running in 2025 and Charles Robinson running back in 2008, which I think was the main event, WrestleMania 24, and that was Edge and Undertaker in Florida as well. So let's watch some running, Stevie.
Now, I want to show this. This is 17 years ago. Oops. This is... The dude does... Now, besides a bully, you're a vampire. You're a vampire. Or you're a Highlander and you're immortal. And you think I'm a Highlander and you're trying to say there's only one. Please stop attacking me, Charles Robinson. He's the reason I won't move to North Carolina.
Well, because he'll cut your head off until there can only be one.
I just don't want to. If I bump into him, I just don't know how I can protect myself in my weakened state.
Here we are, born to be kings. Man, I love Highlander. It's got everything. It's got Queen. I love Queen.
Except for a bully like Charles Robinson. But then again, if they
of course he did. He's got the Kurgan. What kind of?
That's true. He's the Kurgan of WWE.
So you made it to the ring in 2008, nothing else.
I just think somebody who was supposed to pounce him in 2008, I think Taker was scared and said, I'm just staying in the ring, brother. That's Charles Robinson running down the ring.
Yeah, they probably got rid of Monty Brown like a couple of months earlier. So he couldn't have done it.
They probably got rid of Monty Brown because Charles was probably pouncing people in the back. And go, what do we need this guy for? That's an awesome callback, though. Whoever's there that recreated this, you got to appreciate it. And the fact, you know what I think? I think that was Cena. I think that spot was a call by Cena, who said, dude, in a good way, you know, it would be cool. You did that run down here. Let's do it again. Somebody was a fan of this and obviously friends with Charles, maybe one of the least bullied people on the roster. He has very few friends left right now. So, but basically, actually has a lot of friends. They're probably just too scared. I'm not going to let that go. But at the same time, Cena is such a fan of wrestling. Let's not mix things with this. People rag Cena. Cena is a student of the game and a fan of wrestling in general. And I think that's a John Cena call. Just my prediction.
You also said that Charles Robinson was the worst Madden player as well. Him and AJ Styles.
No. Don't you dare. Don't you dare. No, you don't get me in that kind of trouble. I got to switch cameras. Don't do that. Stop.
No, you said AJ Styles was still the worst Madden player.
Oh, yeah. That's fine. You see, I'm more scared of Charles Robinson than the AJ Styles. That sounds about right.
Was there another what went wrong that we were going to do, or have I not even written it down? Oh, there was.
Oh, the double choke slam.
Yeah, there was. I'm sorry. Well, forget about the outro. Yeah, you sort out the. Okay, this is also from WWE Night of Champions, and it also happens to be pretty much the same segment. It's towards the end of the John Cena CM Punk WWE Championship main event in Saudi Arabia, and everything's going absolutely fine, absolutely hunky-dory. And then for some reason, Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed together can't do a simple move on CM Punk. Three people, and the timing is all over the place. So, Stevie, tell us what went wrong.
Thank you, James. And, you know, this is a thing where I think the inexperience really shows through. And these two guys have done excellent work. And it's almost like it's been a false positive that they've really have played to their strengths and hidden their weaknesses. And one of those things is rushing. Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed have had really impeccable timing. When you think about some of the spots, especially at Bron with the spears and the one on Penta where he jumped off and got speared in midair and other things. So I think in this regard, maybe backstage or even in rehearsal, they really didn't go through what's most important when it comes to a double team move like a choke slam, a power bomb like the Shield power bomb through a table, that you need to get cues from each other. you need to take your time and do the ready, set, go, down, up, down type thing. Those two little elements of looking at each other right here and saying, ready, 1, 2, 3, down, up, choke slam through there. So let's take a look. What they do, okay, they're already going. I'm going to back it up. The minute they hook Punk here, what they should be doing right here is making sure that they're looking at each other to say, ready to go, down, up, and put them through the table. Unfortunately, what happens is Bronson Reed wants to go before Bron Breakker's set. So as you look right here, they got here, and their hand placement is all wrong. So here's what it should be. They're using the chest. Bron Breakker has the throat, upper chest. Bronson Reed is underneath him right there. So right away, you may not even have a balanced bump. So as it goes in slow motion, Punk is jumping because he's feeling Bron Breakker's rushing with the choke slam bump. So he's trying to jump as Bronson Reed is squatting down. So Bronson Reed thinks it's the hold, down, up, down. Bron Breakker snatch straight up. Punk's feeling the push and going, do I jump up when the other guy is going down? So there's two opposite forces going right there. Unfortunately, and also, look, Punk doesn't even have a chance to post. So what happens is, during this part, before this actually, they hook, they throw it. Taker and Kane are a prime example. Throw both the arms over. They got the hand on the throat and the chest area. They look at each other. They both squat down, push up, choke slam. The squat is where the height comes from. The lower you squat, the higher the choke slam, and the bigger the bump into the table. But mostly I put it on Bron Breakker for rushing and thinking they had to do that. It's literally an extra 3 seconds to do that, maybe 5 in stages. The first stage is double over the head, then look at the guy, and your heads are past him. So what he has a chance to do there is put a hand on each shoulder, then post up, straight up in the air, and clear himself for a flat bump and enough momentum and height to break the table. And that's not what happened. So they basically just showed how green Bron Breakker is by rushing the spot. Maybe they said, hey, you guys got to go home, hurry up, go home. And that was in his ear. So he ended up rushing. This is the first, how should I say? This is the first time I've seen Bron Breakker get exposed for being green and inexperienced. And you know what? Not a big deal. It went wrong, but everything else around the finish and all the layers and all the things done to perfection with Charles Robinson, the bully of the WWE, the biggest bully in WWE history, then other things happening with Seth Rollins and the cash-in and Cena with the belt all done to perfection. Everybody got protected. Everybody, came out of that with something as far as business. Nobody got buried. But of course, this can stand out as what went wrong. But I don't think it hurt the match.
So because in my mind, it doesn't suit the characters of Bron and Bronson to be doing a choke slam. So I don't know, what's the best way of lifting somebody up? So if they're doing it one hand each, essentially, where should the hands be? On the chest? Under the arms? Where's the easiest place to do a double team sort of lift in that sense?
I think that the best thing would have been to both grab the throat, the other put his hand over the hand so they are on even ground. What happens when you have two people, it's kind of like a double backdrop with people with two different heights. Not going to be good, right? Because somebody's posting, you're posting on two shoulders that are two different heights. Bron and Bronson are about the same height. That's good. But Punk needs to put his hands on the shoulder to literally go as high as he can up in the air and therefore take a good back bump. Them grabbing the chest allows this. Here, they're static. That you can slip with that, and there's a ton of sweat on Punk, so that's another thing. You're right there. The only other thing I would say would be, if you really want to protect and he can't post, you grab him by the throat and you put each arm, each outside hand under his armpit. Then you go up with that, and then you're both pushing him up. Boom. But the very first cue for both guys, whether you're doing this, arm over, he's posted on the shoulders, is to look at each other, squat down together, come up, and then the bump. It's 5 extra seconds. But Bron Breakker, I think the ref said, gotta go home. Come on, gotta go home. And that was it. And it scared him. It spooked him in a way where he had to rush.
Now, I don't know if... I've seen this on like an older episode of Raw. I'm very sure. In fact, I can even tell you where it was. It was DX, before the New Age Outlaws had joined, so it was Shawn and Triple H, and then the Outlaws as well, and they were powerbombing, I think, Road Warrior Animal. It was one of the Road Warriors, but I think Animal, through the single announce table, as there was on Raw is War at the time. And you can actually see them, or you can hear them going, ready? 1, 2, 3... down, and he made it as safe as possible. Does anybody count themselves into doing the slams? You know, just make sure it's absolutely foolproof these days, or would that be frowned upon?
But here's the thing. It doesn't, in my mind, you could say, I guess it's 6 of one, half a dozen the other. You can say it exposes the business. I dare say it's a team of guys working together. You ready? We're going to put them through the table. 1, 2, 3, go. You know what I mean? That's where I see it as he's selling, he's out. Punk is selling, Punk is out. You guys are a team, but you still need to communicate to each other. I don't see it as a big deal. Now, if you said, Animal, are you ready? Brother? Okay, we're going to powerbomb you. Hey, remember to tuck your chin. Now we're in business exposing territory.
On that business, on that basis, we're done exposing the business for another 2 and a bit hours. So once again, thank you everybody so much.
According to Triple H, we do expose the business every week.
Yeah, well, at least he's got his Unreal show to put us all right on Netflix. So yeah, well done. So everybody, thank you so much for watching. We aren't going anywhere. Quite frankly, we've got material for years for these shows. So I hope you keep watching us. We hope you keep enjoying. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your enemies, if you like. It's absolutely fine. We don't discriminate on that basis. For people joining in, and, you know, we're very, very proud of what we've achieved in the first year, and we're just moving onwards and upwards as best we can, and we are doing that indeed as well. And once again, if we're doing a couple of plugs, the fitness channel for Stevie, the cameo for Stevie, and of course, the Patreon as well, that is going from strength to strength every single time I check it. I check it once a week, and the numbers are always going up, and more people have signed up to the higher tier to join us with the watch-alongs and the pre-shows and the show notes and everything else that goes into it. And a lot of people are also saying that it's actually developing into a proper community of wrestling fans as well, where it's not, you know, it's not social media in that sense, where it's all vicious and snipey and that kind of thing. It's actually just people who get on with each other. It's a great little community. People discuss wrestling. People really enjoying themselves, and a lot of people are getting a lot out of the Patreon community.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that, James. And, I'm going to repeat what I said, those 2 words, gratitude and motivation. We're grateful to everybody out there for supporting the content here on YouTube as well as on Patreon and everywhere else. The messages, the emails, the comments are very much appreciated. Patreon, like you said, has an excellent community of people with differing opinions, but respectfully go back and forth and debate topics, and it's really, really awesome. But I want to end the show right now by saying how grateful I am to you, James, for a year ago or more, taking a chance with this, with the format, with my insanity, with my OCD.
Yeah, I said no.
I said no at first. You said no. You
So I
said
was just
no.
like, I'm just too tired, man. I just and then it sort of
And I said, voluntary. Voluntary.
And then do you know what it was? Do you know why I said I was like, well, you did so much with your own channel with the analysis that I just like, well, you're obviously going to care a lot more. And you know, you were so enthusiastic about it. I thought, well, it won't be like all the other shows that I've done with, you know, ex-professional wrestlers who can't operate, you know, a microwave, essentially. And it's, you know, pulling. And that goes for Dutch as well, let me tell you. Dutch, Don, Shane, we stopped doing for other reasons. Shane Douglas as well. But, you know, none of them were tech savvy. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice to do a show with somebody who can operate electronics?
Oh boy, you didn't know what you're
Yeah,
getting
no, I
yourself
didn't,
into.
no.
And same thing with Chris. But I do thank you for that. Thank you for taking the chance. The year did fly by. I want to thank our editor, Chris, who has just been the MVP of this and turning things around, and the communication and the, you know, the how should I say, the excitement when I bring my ideas for crazy cold opens and other things and different graphics. We got a botch watch custom opening that we're creating right now that's going to be really fun as well for the next botch watch. But I want to thank each and every one of you on the Stevie Richards Show team, meaning you, Chris, and everybody who's going to be joining, as well as the audience. Thank you so much. The year has flown by, and God willing, we're going to have another year or more of this as we continue to grow and be motivated to bring the best content to you. So thank you so much for watching the 1-year anniversary of the Stevie Richards Show, episode 53. He's getting ready for it. See you next week for Aha. Episode 50. 4.
You smart ass.
Hey, smart ass.
You can't beat that for an outro, can you?